A little bit of fear, but actually she's not frightened.
A crowd of children gather outside for dinner. I remember a common complaint we've heard over and over again during this programme, one that Malay wants to change. That the previous government just handed out subsidies and benefits, meaning the poor didn't need to work.
It's a lie because in Argentina, everybody knows that if you don't work, you cannot survive. Those receiving that benefits were middle and upper middle class who have electricity. Basically, I live in a very nice apartment and I pay the same amount of money in electricity, you see? So she's saying, like, actually the subsidies are for people who are in a very comfortable situation.
As we say bye to Vero, we offer a lift to Vicky, who lives further away. We wait to pull off as another horse and cart passes us. Vicky whispers. Until a few months ago, those boys used to come to the soup kitchen. They work for the cartels now. Malay's reforms are having an impact. He recently confirmed his chainsaw would still be running at full speed in 2025. There's a question as to how much economic pain people are willing to take before they lose patience with his experiment.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this is CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
We will do our best to have a great day. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live downtown in Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. And thanks for joining us on Thursday morning. Woo, it's cold out there. Lots of city equipment as well out clearing the streets. So I'll watch for that early this morning and take it easy if it's a little slick on the highways. So right now it's minus 15. It's actually warmer than yesterday morning, but it's minus 15. We do have some light snow. This is the end of a system that's been moving through, so just a couple more centimeters expected in Winnipeg today, and we'll be around minus 14 actually for the day. We do have a snowfall warning. I'm going to launch right into that for a second here. There's a snowfall warning for the municipality of Emerson, Franklin, arm of Stewartburn, Morden Winkler area, Pilot Mountain extending to Boissevain. Total accumulations around 10 centimeters, so that's going to continue through today. Let's say good morning to the team, shall we? Corey Funk is back, making his triumphant return. Good morning, Corey. Corey directs the morning show, and we'll be covering the commute. Good morning to Abby Adeyemi behind the controls, continuing his Christmas sweater a day theme through December. This is a good one, Abby. Abby's our tech producer and also will be on the air covering weather. And good morning to Kevin Nipatebo, who's going to give us a wave on YouTube. Hey, Kev. Kev's our YouTube producer. You might be watching the show there as we stream it all morning. So we're on air till 8:37 with the morning show. Let's get started officially with our headlines. There's a lot of things making news today, and Heather Wells is here to update that. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg police officer charged with impaired driving 3 years ago has been acquitted. Robin Kipling was charged in 2021 after crashing his motorcycle on a road outside of Winnipeg. He failed a roadside breath test, then was taken to hospital to give a blood sample, but there's no record of when the blood sample was taken. His lawyer says Kipling is relieved it is over. And after more than 7 months living in a hotel room, Joyce Hilborn will soon be able to go home. She and 250 tenants forced without notice from Birchwood Terrace earlier this year after severe deterioration was found in that building have been told they have the all clear to return. They still, though, haven't been given a date. We'll hear from her in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
In Brandon, some light snow already, minus 18. And the cold spot in the province, Thompson, at minus 30. Today, the mayor's on the show. Guess what we're going to talk about? Yep, the preliminary budget and the largest proposed tax hike in 34 years.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
Suki Waterhouse started out as a model and an actor, but she's always had a passion for songwriting ever since she was a kid. She'll tell you about turning that hobby into a career, her new album, and what it's like to open up for Taylor Swift on the Eras Tour. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdelmahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. French feminists are celebrating. The verdicts are in for a shocking mass rape trial. All 51 men have been found guilty of assaulting Gisèle Pelicot. Her now former husband admitted to drugging her and recruiting others to rape her. The CBC's Sarah Levitt has been following this trial. She joins me from our London studio. And Sarah, all these men have been charged with sexual assault, attempted rape, or aggravated rape. What happens now?
With these guilty verdicts comes sentencing, and almost all of the men will be taken to prison. And just to give you an idea, outside the courthouse, there have been vans that have arrived to take them there. And I say vans, plural, really bringing home how many men are involved. Among them, of course, Dominique Pellicot, the former husband of Gisèle Pellicot. When he had testified in court, he had declared, "I am a rapist like everyone else in this room." He's received the maximum sentence, 20 years, and that is what the prosecution had asked for. The other men, between 3 to 15 years. At least 5 of the men will actually walk out free, either due to a suspended sentence or because they have already served their time.
Gisèle Pellicot has attended almost every day of this trial. What was she hoping for today?
You know, she's really become this icon in France, but also the world. And, you know, deciding to waive her right to anonymity, walking into the trial every day and having to take in more than 20,000 videos and photos, explicit stuff that happened to her. Her lawyer has said she didn't go public for attention, that she did it really for all other rape victims. I had spoken with her lawyer, Stéphane Babineau, when I was in Avignon. He said she wanted justice, and for her, that would be to see the men declared guilty. As for the sentences,
it would be really easy if a prison sentence could give comfort to a victim of rape and make her feel better afterwards. I won't speak for anyone else, but for Gisèle, the fact of having these men going to prison will never give her back the 15 years that she lost.
It does appear she did get what she hoped for, justice. All 51 men found guilty.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
The CBC's Sarah Levitt in London. And Gisèle Pellicot just spoke to reporters at the courthouse. She thanked her family, journalists, and supporters. Here she is speaking through a translator.
By opening the doors of this trial in September last so that society could see what was happening, I never regretted this decision. I trust and I have confidence in our capacity collectively to find a better future in which men and women alike can live harmoniously together with respect.
That was Gisèle Pellicot speaking just minutes ago in Avignon, France. The U.S. government is inching closer towards a shutdown. A funding bill meant to avert it was rejected by Republicans in Congress. Both Donald Trump and Elon Musk told lawmakers not to support it. The CBC's Richard Madden is following this story for us. Richard, take us through what happened.
Yeah, it's a stunning turn of events. Mere hours after House Speaker Mike Johnson appeared to have reached a bipartisan deal to keep the U.S. government open, incoming President Donald Trump blew it up, saying it's stuffed with too many giveaways to Democrats. He echoed earlier post by Elon Musk, the world's richest man who's been appointed by Trump to oversee government spending. Musk trashed the bill and threatened any Republican who supported it with their political demise. Now, the bill allows the government to pay its bills through until next March, but it also includes unrelated spending, about $100 billion for disaster aid, $10 billion for farmers, but it also gives pay raises to members of Congress. So after Musk put out the warning, Republicans quickly fell in line. This spending bill is dead, and the government is now on the brink of shutting down right before Christmas. Now, House Democrats say the chaos can all be blamed on Republicans and question who's calling the shots. Is it Trump or Musk? Here's Minority House Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
House Republicans will now own any harm that is visited upon the American people that results from a government shutdown or worse.
Not only does this put the Speaker and Republicans under pressure to start over, it also previews the challenges Republicans will have to manage when Trump takes office and the outsized power of Trump's inner circle who threaten their careers if they don't obey.
So what happens now?
Yeah, so House leadership needs to come up with a plan B. Maybe they have to start all over again with a smaller version that Democrats could support, but the pressure is clearly on Speaker Johnson because he needs to come up with a plan before the government's own deadline of midnight Friday.
All right, thank you, Richard.
You bet.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. In Yemen, fire trucks are at a power plant in Sana'a. It was targeted by Israeli airstrikes overnight, along with other energy infrastructure. A Houthi-run news station says 9 people were killed, and Israel's defense minister is warning there will be more. Israel Katz says whoever strikes Israel will be hit sevenfold. The Houthis fired a missile at central Israel yesterday. It was intercepted. The number of people experiencing homelessness in Saskatchewan's big cities is climbing. In Regina and Saskatoon, more than 2,300 people are looking for help. And as Chris Edwards tells us, shelters are struggling.
Last winter I lost too much friends, and that's why I'm doing it this year.
At a rally outside of Saskatoon City Hall, housing advocate David Fonde braved the -20 cold to deliver an urgent message about the city's homelessness crisis.
I do not want to lose any more people.
Since 2020, the number of people in the city without stable housing has tripled to at least 1,500 people. Saskatoon Mayor Cynthia Block has only been in her role for a few weeks, but says her administration is taking things seriously.
It's all hands on deck for both the administration and for the elected officials. Council is very concerned that we failed to meet the challenge of our time, and that's not okay.
But housing advocate Melissa Natauhaus says change isn't happening fast enough.
Me as an advocate, I don't see much change happening. It's a lot of lip service, and it's not a lot of action. So they say they're going to do this and this and this, and you don't really see a whole lot.
And it's a similar trend in Regina. The number of people experiencing homelessness there has risen by almost 70% since 2021. For new Regina Mayor Chad Pashinsky, the problem comes down to a lack of support from the province.
We need sustainable funding to adequately support the services and the programs that effectively hit boots on the ground and can help people directly.
This all comes on the heels of the latest national housing numbers from the Canadian Real Estate Association. It's reporting that the price of homes in Saskatchewan have grown by nearly 9% since December 2022, whereas in Canada as a whole, prices have remained stable over the same period. Chris Edwards, CBC News, Regina.
It's been almost a week since Canada's GST holiday began, but one industry in particular is still wondering why it was not included. As Natalia Goodwin reports, Canada's craft distilleries were hoping to give their customers a tax break too.
Either they didn't think about it or they have a problem with spirits and they're actively looking to harm or exclude the sector.
Alex Hamer is the founder of Artisan Distilleries Canada. He can't comprehend why the industry would have been left out of the tax break.
What's the purpose? How was this thought about? How were these products determined?
At SFR Distillery in Ottawa, General Manager Adam Brierley is wondering the same thing and worried it will mean less sales.
We're pretty much the only excluded beverage across alcoholic and non-alcoholic options, which is quite frustrating.
He says the industry in Ontario has been hit with a double whammy in recent months, the tax break and being left off the shelf when Premier Doug Ford expanded where liquor could be sold. Ontario's Department of Finance told CBC that spirits will continue to be sold exclusively at the LCBO, a decision it says aligns with other Canadian jurisdictions and ensures socially responsible sales. But Brierley isn't buying it. He points to other countries where spirits are sold outside dedicated shops and says it seems that here they're dealing with a bad rep.
There are many viable options to sell spirits that our governments, federally and provincially, just don't seem to be interested in considering.
CBC reached out to the Federal Department of Finance for comment. They have yet to respond to our questions. Natalia Goodwin, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, welcome to Thursday morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live downtown in the city. There's some light snow falling, and there is a snowfall warning for part of Manitoba. Thanks so much for joining us on Information Radio. This is the morning show on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. All right, let's look at what's coming up. You might be up early swimming. It's one of those things. Always love musicians are late night people, swimmers, bakers, radio people, all early mornings. Well, we're going to talk about a swimmer that's inspired today. At only 18 years old, Canada's Summer McIntosh has been just a phenom, an international swimming success. She was just recently named Canadian Athlete of the Year, you might recall. Today, we're going to hear how that's fueled one young Winnipeg swimmer's passion for the sport. Also this hour on the program, to serious matters, the government's new border security plan. Some details are now coming out. We're going to get some analysis of that, so stay tuned. And I want to briefly mention there's also a new report out from climate science organization Climate Central, and it shows that Canadian cities are seeing fewer days with sub-zero temperatures due to climate change. So where does Manitoba factor into this study? We'll find out. Right now, with other news from Manitoba, here's Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, a man with a rare degenerative disease may have to leave Manitoba because the province won't cover the cost of his treatment. Jeremy Bray has spinal muscular atrophy. It has gradually robbed the 29-year-old of the ability to move his muscles. Treatment can stop the disease's progression, but the drug Bray needs could cost as much as $300,000 in the first year. And the daughter of a senior who has been missing for more than a year hopes recommendations from the review into his disappearance prevent similar incidents. Earl Moberg hasn't been seen since December 12th last year. The 81-year-old suffered from dementia, and his disappearance has been deemed a critical incident. We're going to hear from his daughter coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Some serious stories in the news today. Wow. Let's get into what's going on in the weather forecast. So, Abby Adiemi, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm good, and Corey's back. Hi,
Hello,
Corey.
hi.
How you doing?
Better.
We'll just leave it at that.
A little bit of a stomach flu.
Yeah, no one needs the deets, man.
No.
The forecast today is actually going to bring a little bit more snow, right?
Yes, the system all started from overnight. Now we have that snowfall warning in effect for several areas in southern Manitoba, which includes Morden, Winkler, Altona, and surrounding areas. As mentioned, it started overnight. It's expected to build up accumulation. We're going to be seeing about 10 centimeters in some of the areas before the system ends in the afternoon. Now, as we move north, the snowfall amount is going to be decreasing, with Winnipeg expecting only a few today. Though this, once it comes down, it's going to be making travel difficult. Visibility will be reduced. It's going to be whipping around at some point, so you just want to take it easy on the road. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at minus 15. Light snow drifting in the city. That should taper off later this morning. We should see about 2 to 4 centimeters. That's plus what we saw overnight by the time the system leaves us, and then we'll be around a high of minus 14 for today.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
It's a little warmer than yesterday, at least. There's already crews out there, Corey, I noticed, that are plowing, and
Yes.
it's the first morning with the residential ban that started last night at 7 o'clock for snow clearing.
Yep.
And I also noticed a car that was, you always see them, right? Someone didn't move it.
You see the
All the
outline of
snow
where
around
the
it.
car was,
Yep.
and you're like, hey, why didn't they plow there? Oh, because there was totally a car there. Yeah, there's a big old pile. Yeah.
Anything else going on out there?
Yeah, actually, I want to talk about the highways right now. There's a few places that you just want to be extra cautious. Highway 1 from Brandon right to the Saskatchewan border is being reported right now as covered. I'm actually looking on Manitoba 511 right now, and there's a whole bunch of snowplows making their way along there. So hopefully the conditions will get better throughout the morning. But right now it's being reported as covered. As well, that area around Morden, Winkler, Manitou, Carmen, those highways, poor visibility and covered as well right now from all that snow coming down. So just be really careful if you're hitting the highways in southern Manitoba, western Manitoba this morning. Not great conditions. If you see anything else, though, going on out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
It's a gold medal, McIntosh.
After this morning, I definitely thought it was a possibility to break that 2-minute barrier and get the world record, just because this morning felt pretty light. So to do it is always nice. And I love Turner Fly in general. It's one of my favorite events. So yeah, it's been awesome so far and trying to keep it rolling.
Well, she has kept it rolling all the way through 2024. That is Olympic gold medalist swimmer Summer McIntosh, who is warming everyone's hearts this winter as she makes a splash in swimming history. So we're hearing a recent competition. At just 18 years old, her career is already littered with medals and world records. This year, she was named the Canadian Athlete of the Year and the World Aquatics Female Swimmer of the Year, which really came as no surprise to anyone. She recently claimed a third gold medal at the World Short Course Swim Championship in Budapest, Hungary. But the success isn't just affecting her, it's also inspiring swimmers. Swimmers like my first guest this morning. So all over Winnipeg, people are wide-eyed and dreaming of their future in the sport of swimming, and what a role model to have. Michaela Urpello is up early with us and on Zoom. She's a competitive swimmer with Alpha Swim Club, and she's here to talk more about Summer McIntosh. Hi there.
Hi.
So have you always been a fan of Summer McIntosh, or when did you first start of paying attention to her awesomeness in the pool?
I first saw her in 2020 in Tokyo, and I've kind of just been a fan of her since. It's really been like surreal watching someone that's like only a year older than me like being super successful. So
No doubt. I was going to mention that you're 17, as you said. You're younger than Summer McIntosh. What's it been like, not just for you, but for other young swimmers that you swim with, watching her career? It can't just be you that's inspired by this, obviously.
yeah, it's definitely not just me. It's like my friends. I have a younger sister. She swims as well. I think she definitely looks up to Summer McIntosh. And like going back to my friends, we always talk about her, and like we're always like watching her swim, and just kind of mind blown about how successful she is, and kind of how we want to kind of be like her.
Now, I don't know enough about the sport and swimming, so you can educate me a little bit here. When you watch her, because obviously it's so cool to watch her and she's amazing, it's inspiring even for someone like me that's never going to competitively swim. But when you watch her, do you watch for techniques? Do you watch for sort of how she makes her turns? Like, what are you watching for?
Well, the first time I kind of just watched to see what happens, see how she resulted, kind of her split times. And then the second time I really watch for technique, and then try and see like, is there anything that could really apply to myself?
How long have you been competitively swimming yourself?
Oh, I've been competitive swimming for around like 8 years, I think.
Yeah. What is it that drew you to the sport?
Well, so my parents, they kind of just put me in lessons, and then they put me into the swim team, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this because I really like it.
Obviously, you're good at it. What's on the wall behind you? I can see medals there, and I know they have to do with swimming.
I took down a couple of medals because I brought it to my grad pictures, but I have a bunch more from like a couple competitions. There's like a plaque for a high point, and I think a small poster from when I was a kid in swimming, and it's kind of just me screaming at a relay team. So
you know what I love? I love that we're talking about you being motivated and inspired by Summer McIntosh, but you also are motivating yourself by having your successes on the wall. I just love that. I love that. Backstroke is your style, I understand. So tell me a little bit about backstroke. Is it particularly competitive? Do most swimmers gravitate toward front crawl? Like, educate us a little bit in terms of how hard it is to compete in backstroke.
I feel like for me, I'm a little on the shorter side, so backstroke is very like kind of reaching sport and having like a really strong kick. But I'm short, so I do not have that kind of reach. So what I have to do to make up for it is kind of bump up my stroke rate, bump up my kick, so that I can kind of keep up with the competition. And like competition wise, it's kind of like there's a lot of people. I can name like a bunch of people like that are my friends who also compete in backstroke, and they're really good. And I kind of just try my best to keep up. And it's definitely a well picked stroke by a bunch of people. But I do think that most people kind of lean towards like breaststroke, freestyle.
Or the freestyle.
Yeah, breaststroke and freestyle is kind of what most people like to do, but definitely like backstroke is still like kind of there's a lot of competition inside for me.
Did you notice Summer McIntosh? Obviously you're talking about her inspiring swimmers. Did you notice at your swim clubs or at the pool any kind of a bump around when the Olympics were actually on this year? Like, were there new faces?
For this kind of time around, I can't really tell because there's so many swimmers.
Fair enough.
But
yeah.
Like Alpha, when I moved to Alpha, there was definitely like more like I moved just last year, and it was like there were people I haven't even met before, but there were also people I can like connect with, as we talked about Summer McIntosh and her success.
Yeah. How do you imagine your future in swimming? We mentioned you've been competing for 8 years now. What do you hope the future looks like?
I'm definitely like looking through my options because I'm trying to get into like university and college sports, like college swimming. So I'm kind of just like looking forward to see if I can keep going in that direction because I'm graduating this year.
Awesome. Well, good luck with your graduation, Michaela. Thanks for getting up early and talking to us about all this. And also good luck with your swimming. We'll have to follow along.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye. I think the Zoom actually just cut out on us there. Shows Michaela waving by. Michaela Erpello, who's a competitive swimmer with Alpha Swim Club here in Winnipeg, talking about the success of Summer McIntosh, who's been named the Canadian Athlete of the Year.
A seagull splatting sunscreen on unsuspecting kids. A hamburger proved it's tasty by growing mold.
Ew.
And a National Rifle Association president speaking to empty chairs at a fake high school. When courageous marketers become rule breakers on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
6:22 a.m. is the time right now, Thursday morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at Information Radio, the morning show. Light snow falling, -15, and about 2 to 4 centimeters expected in Winnipeg today. Our high is going to be really similar to where we're at right now. So -14 is the daytime high. So it's just going to move by 1 degree. Well, you likely know it by one word, Emerson. Yep, it's a Manitoba town, but it is also the busiest border crossing from Manitoba into the United States. Well, what is that going to look like in 2025? This week, the Canadian government announced details of their new border security plan costing $1.3 billion. The plan appears targeted toward appeasing Donald Trump. The incoming president has threatened to impose 25% tariffs if Canada does not secure the border. To talk about all this, Christian Leuprecht is our guest today. He's professor at Royal Military College and Queen's University. He's the author of the book Security, Cooperation, Governance, the Canada-United States Open Border Paradox. And he joins us via Zoom. Hey there, how you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning. So Donald Trump has complained, of course, we know about the flow of illegal drugs. So specifically, he's been citing fentanyl, right? Also migrants coming from Canada. I've heard varying analysts weigh in on this. So I wanted to start with your take about how valid you think those complaints are.
So any one of these threat vectors Canada could get a handle on, but it's the combination of the multiplicity of threat vectors and how they've compiled and grown over recent years. So there's the concern about how easy it is to bring precursor chemicals into this country, and that has resulted in an overproduction of fentanyl that is finding its way into the United States, to Australia, and to Europe. Your chances of detection, disruption, or prosecution are virtually none. As a former director of the Canadian Security Intelligence Service has said, Canada is a high-value, low-risk jurisdiction. Add to that concerns about other counterfeit goods that are being transshipped through the port of Vancouver, the implantation of Mexican cartels and Chinese triads in this country, the ease with which it is to launder money into Canada, through Canada and out of Canada, the regulations of our financial institutions, if we see the fine against TD Bank's operations in the United States, and the relative ease with which you can now get into this country, in particular to Canadian airports, and then make your way to the United States. And it is not just Trump. The Biden administration has written to the Trudeau government about this. Both houses of Congress have written to the Trudeau government. The Northern Border Caucus has written to the Trudeau government. And so the difference is with Donald Trump, you get those demands with a frown, and you get a Donald Trump that is linking trade to national security and border issues. And usually in these negotiations, you don't engage in this type of linkage.
So that obviously the link's been made. It also puts pressure then on Canada to respond. So what specifically is in this plan that addresses Trump's concerns? Because a lot of Canadians are wondering what our borders are going to look like.
Well, I'm not really sure that any of this addresses Trump's complaints. It's a 6-year plan. It is not past Parliament, so that is to say, nothing here will be in place for the time that that Donald Trump is actually sworn in on January 20th. Initially, the plan simply restores the cuts that the government has made to the agencies. The plan provides money for more hiring, but of course, these agencies are already 1,500 to 3,000 people short, so it's not clear. Politicians always like to hire more people, especially this government, which has grown the federal civil service by 45%, but it's not clear where you're going to hire more people when you already can't hire enough people for the jobs that you need. The government has announced drones and helicopters. It's not clear to me what drones and helicopters will do about fentanyl and fentanyl precursors, and you can't fly them in the sector where 98% of people, of migrants cross, which is in the Swanton sector between Quebec and New York State, Vermont and New Hampshire, because that's the densest air traffic corridor in North America. There's some discretionary powers for the minister, but perhaps we might want to exercise more rigor about screening people who come into this country to begin with. The government has tripled the number of people it brings in every year, but has not given additional resources to CBSA, RCC, and CSIS to screen those individuals. And the government stayed away from all the politically controversial measures it could have taken to have an immediate impact, much more immediate impact and effect on the border. And I think that was deliberate, because ultimately, if you're down in the polls, you don't want to take measures that might cost you more votes.
What measures might the government take should they be responding directly to Trump's complaints if what you've just said, Christian, is that this is misaligned?
Well, so I think what Canada needs to do to safeguard its sovereignty, what we did after 9/11 with the Smart Border Declaration, what we did when we renegotiated NAFTA under the first Trump administration, we came with a very concrete plan that was basically a negotiation basis, and that a plan that was intended to safeguard Canadian sovereignty and that allowed U.S. authorities to engage with us in a constructive fashion, that showed that we understand what their concerns are, and that ultimately we want to develop common aims and then approaches on both sides of the border to achieve those common aims. I don't see any of those efforts included here in terms of what the broader sort of effects are that the government might want to achieve. It doesn't also seem to be much of a negotiation strategy, and it's not much of a signaling effect. The government could have, for instance, criminalized entering this country irregularly between ports of entry. Canadians might be surprised to know that this is an offense under the Customs Act. It is not a criminal offense to enter this country irregularly, but those are all measures that I guess the government decided it wasn't going to take.
So is the money wasted then? The money that they're spending on the measures they are taking? This is, as I mentioned, $1.3 billion.
Well, to be fair, look, both governments on both sides of the aisle for the last 20 plus years have taken a rather homeopathic posture to national security and to border security. And so certainly this gets us sort of some of the way. And it is good that for the first time in 9 years, borders and border security are actually a priority for the government. And so the money will have some effect. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say is the biggest challenges that we have are probably not financial challenges. They're probably more broadly challenges of political cover, for instance, for the civil servants and for agencies to do what is necessary. And announcing sort of a haphazard plan a few days before Christmas in the hopes that it gets buried in the news cycle by the time the new government comes, the holidays are over, and a plan that ultimately is going to be not impossible, but difficult to pass through Parliament, and a plan that was not coordinated with the opposition to make sure that it actually passes, is probably not the most efficient or effective, let alone adequate strategy and way ahead.
Well, we can't ask the Prime Minister about it because he canceled his year-end interviews, Christian, as you know. But what a time. All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Always a pleasure to talk. Have a lovely morning.
Yeah, you as well. That's Christian Leuprecht, who is a professor at the Royal Military College and Queen's University. He's the author of the book Security, Cooperation, Governance, the Canada-United States Open Border Paradox. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are with Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and YouTube. We have business news coming up, and a foreign bank is looking to enter the market in Canada. Christley Ramlakan is going to tell us all about what we know about what the details are of that story. So stay tuned for that. Just a quick traffic note before the news. Highways are slick in Western Manitoba. Mike called our commuter line. He's driving from Dauphin to Brandon, so he's going through Riding Mountain National Park. He says it's like driving a curling rod rock down the number 10. So you know what that means. That means sheer ice and slowing your speeds. He says he's going about 55 to 60K to try and stay safe out there. So check highways before you go. Know that you could see some challenges and call us if you need, like Mike did. 788-3093. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, we've got light and blowing snow. It is a little bit windy out there. Minus 15 currently. The snow ending late this morning, 2 to 4 centimeters expected. Today's high in Winnipeg is minus 14. The family of a man with a rare degenerative disease may have to leave Manitoba because the province won't cover the cost of his treatment. Spinal muscular atrophy has gradually cost 29-year-old Jeremy Bray the use of his muscles. He believes a drug called risdiplam could stop the disease's progression, but it could cost as much as $300,000 in the first year of treatment. The province won't cover that drug because Bray is older than Health Canada's cutoff of 25. His father, Darren, says his son won't stop fighting.
He's getting weaker, and it's all going to come to an end without a treatment. So getting on treatment, experiencing a bit of gain in strength, as minimal as it might be, he loses that worry of regressing further. And that's everything to him.
Bray's family is considering moving to Saskatchewan. It's one of the provinces that has granted exceptions for risdiplam's use. Manitoba's health minister says the onus is on Canada's drug agency to change its recommendation. The daughter of a senior who has been missing for just over a year says she plans to continue advocating for change. The WRHA completed its critical incident review of Earl Moberg's December 2023 disappearance. His daughter, Britt Moberg, says she is pleased with the recommendations put forward by the health authority, including making sure home care is more flexible. She hopes that will help other families who have loved ones battling dementia.
My dad is presumed to be dead, and there's not anything that's going to help his situation now, but really there's so many people out there who have dementia and they're caregivers right now, and hoping that these changes can help.
Moberg is also working on a petition for a national silver alert system and hopes to one day give her father a proper burial. After more than 7 months living in a hotel room, Joyce Hilborn will soon be able to go home. She and 250 tenants who were suddenly forced without notice from Birchwood Terrace earlier this year have been told they can soon be back home. Severe deterioration was found in parts of the building structure. Hilborn says she's taking this news with a grain of salt.
We don't even have a move-in date. They said that they would be notifying every person individually. So we don't know when we're going to get that call.
The city says the owners of Birchwood Terrace have met all its safety conditions and requirements. A full occupancy permit has now been issued. A Winnipeg police officer charged with impaired driving after his motorcycle crashed in 2021 has been acquitted. Robin Kipling was charged after crashing on a road outside Winnipeg. He failed a roadside breath test and was taken to hospital for a blood test. No one recorded when the blood test was taken, and it was days before RCMP picked up the results. All of that leading the provincial judge to acquit. Mark Wasilyu is Kipling's lawyer. He questions why this case went forward given the problems with the evidence.
Especially when there are long delays in our court process, it's because, of cases like this that probably never should have got to a court and in front of a judge.
Wasilyu says his client is relieved this is over after being dragged out for so many years. A contentious planning framework for Winnipeg and its neighboring municipalities goes to a vote today. Plan 2050 would coordinate planning and land use standards for the city and 17 of its neighbors. Several mayors and reeves strongly oppose the plan. Carla Devlin, the mayor of East St. Paul, expects the plan will be defeated at a meeting of the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region. She says she supported the regional coordination on infrastructure, but not rules governing the size of lots in residential neighborhoods.
The density targets got into the weeds of municipalities and raised some eyebrows. I think that we have to have a gentle approach to development in municipalities and ensure that autonomy is still at the level of the council.
The NDP government has already weakened the plan, introducing legislation to allow municipalities to opt out. Well, the Winnipeg Jets had their moments in Anaheim.
Ehlers up front, they score. Velarde at the goal mouth, and we are tied at 1. Another power play goal for the Jets.
Gabe Velarde on an assist from Nikolai Ehlers in the second period on TSN, but the Jets could not get a win. The Ducks take it 3-2. It was Ehlers' first game back after missing 10 games because of injury. He says Winnipeg didn't deserve to win that game, and he says Winnipeg's goalie, Eric Comrie, deserved better.
We weren't good enough in front of him. It's disappointing, and it sucks when you have goalies playing as well as they do. So we got to hold each other accountable for what we're doing out there. So we're not doing that. So we got some work to do.
As for his own play, Ehlers says he also has some work to do. The Jets now are back in Winnipeg on Saturday hosting the Minnesota Wild. You can find more Manitoba news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
So I have family from California in town, and I was looking for some gifts or whatever that maybe I could, gift them. And I was in the Jets store, and I was and I was looking, and I thought I had these toques, and I'm like, they don't need toques though, right? So,
do they want jet ski?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not.
I think, why not? Why not?
I would if I went to another. Well, but would you wear it once you get back? That's a very good question. Anyway, good thing
maybe they're Jets fans.
Good thing I didn't pull the trigger. All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
By the way, though, if you want some good sports analysis, go to the Jet Store after a game. Like around me, that's all everybody was talking about. 6:36 a.m. is the time right now, and Abby is here to talk about our regional forecast.
Yep, we're looking at light snow showers, and that is drifting this morning. We also have that snowfall warning in effect for several areas in southern Manitoba, which will be impacting travel, reducing visibility at some point, and whipping around on open areas. So you want to take care as you set out on any highway today and even within the city limits. Right now in the city, it is still -15. We're seeing that light snow showers whipping around in some areas. That should taper off by late morning, leaving behind cloudy conditions, and we should see about 2 to 4 centimeters accumulation. It will get breezy at some point, and then our highs would touch -14. But for tomorrow, sunshine in the forecast. Heading west to Brandon, it is -18 at this point. Also similar to Winnipeg, light snow which is blowing. That should taper off in the morning, and then leaving behind cloudy skies. The high is expected to be around -15, though the wind chill is something to take into consideration. It's going to be feeling closer to -30 for folks in Brandon today. Entering into the Red River Valley region, where we have that snowfall warning really impacting the Morden Winkler area. Temperatures around -14 at this time. Once the system goes through, you should be seeing about 10 centimeters expected, and that should taper off later. The wind chill is going to be near -24. For Dauphin, we're looking at temperatures around -19. We're seeing light snow at this time. This snow should end this morning, leaving behind cloudy skies in the Parkland region, and we'll see highs around -16, though the wind chill is going to be feeling like -29. So be cautious. There's a risk of frostbites in play there. In the Interlake region, Gimli's around -16 at this point. Expect cloudy skies today, highs around -15. There's a chance of more flurries later in the day. It will get breezy. The winds will pick up from the north, and we'll see temperatures even deepen more tonight. The Pamphlet Flaunt around -28 at this time, partly cloudy conditions. You should see some sunny conditions later, but it will be cold. You'd see a high of -21. The wind chill is going to be close to -40. You're going to be around -38 with that wind chill factored in. And then if we move north to Thompson and Churchill, Thompson is currently at a -29, seeing clear conditions. It will be sunny in Thompson, but Churchill is in ice crystals, and we'll see a mix of sun and clouds. Both regions will be seeing the wind chill around -38. But for Winnipeg, it's going to be more like a chilly day with this light snow just tapering off, and take into consideration it's going to be blowing around.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of that, let's go to the highways and the road condition report now with the commute, Corey?
Slick. Pretty much right across the province. Even Megan Ketcherson, who just came in right now here in the city, she says the roads are just very slick right now, to let folks know. Out on the highways as well, particularly around Winkler, Morden, as well as Highway 1 from Brandon to the Saskatchewan border are showing on Manitoba 501 as poor visibility, covered highways. So poor conditions. Got a call from Mike earlier on the commuter line. It says he's driving from Dauphin to Brandon this morning, going through Riding Mountain. And he says driving down number 10 there is essentially like driving a curling rock down the road. So just really slick overall. So just be careful if you're hitting the highways, the roads in general this morning. If you're walking, bike, and driving, though, let me know what you're seeing out there. I could tell you that the sidewalks and the bike lanes this morning, at least where I was at on my way in, were actually quite nicely plowed. So that's a bonus for being a pedestrian this morning. But if you see anything going on out there, 204-788-3093.
We're going to talk about the sidewalks and plowing in the next hour. The mayor of the city of Winnipeg is on to talk about the preliminary budget and all the changes in it, besides property tax increase that is proposed there, the tax increase rather. There's also, of course, a change to when crews are out on residential streets to plow. Obviously, the threshold of snow is higher. So I asked you on Facebook yesterday to write in with questions about the mayor. A lot of them are about that, concerns about that, walking and using the sidewalks. So we're going to have that as part of our interview in the next hour when Mayor Scott Gillingham is here. So I get to hear, though, from Corey that in a lot of places there has been some clearing done this morning. 6:41 a.m. Thursday morning. Time for Crystal Lee Ramlakan and our business report on CBC. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So a foreign bank is looking to enter the market in Canada. What do we know about this?
Yeah, and you know what? It's not every day that a big foreign bank decides to have a go at Canada's retail banking market. But Spain's Banco Santander is poised to be among the few that have tried. So in April, the finance minister approved its application for a banking license, but it still needs the go-ahead from the banking regulator. Now, the bank already has more than 168 million customers worldwide, and a fresh international challenger could add some competition to the country's banking sector, which only has a handful of big players. You know, we always talk about the big six banks here. But experts warn it won't be easy to shake up the status quo. Ji Jung, who teaches finance at Trent University, looked at the data and found since the mid-1990s, about 60 foreign banks have come into Canada, and 46 of them have failed or were bought up by a Canadian company. But still, Jung says Santander would be a welcome competitor.
It depends what type of the business this Spanish bank will do in Canada. So some of the foreign banks, they can provide the full service to Canadians. So it really depends on what type of the business they will provide in Canadian banking sector.
Now, Santander already has an auto lending operation in Canada after it bought Edmonton-based Carfinco in 2014 for about $300 million, and the bank renamed it Santander Consumer in 2021.
To another story in business news next, a Canadian carbon removal company has scored a $40 million grant from a fund that's backed by Bill Gates. So what are the details here?
Yes, so the Climate Solutions venture firm says its Alberta test site will be removing carbon directly from the atmosphere as early as this spring. So Montreal-based startup Deep Sky has been awarded funding from this Gates-backed foundation called Breakthrough Energy Catalyst to help finance what it calls its Deep Sky Alpha project. And construction work at the project site located north of Calgary is already underway. So the CEO says the facility will be one of the first in North America to actually remove CO2 from the atmosphere using renewable power and to store it underground in a deep saline aquifer. So Deep Sky was founded last year by Frederic Lalonde, the Canadian entrepreneur who co-founded online travel company Hopper. And it is the first Canadian company to receive an investment from that fund from Bill Gates, the Breakthrough Energy Catalyst, which funds commercial projects for emerging climate technologies, in an effort to accelerate their adoption and reduce their costs. So the technology here typically involves the use of giant vacuums or fans to suck air in, and then they pass it through a filtration system to remove the CO2 for safe storage underground.
And finally, why is the maker of the liquor Grand Marnier betting on hip-hop?
Well, it's to try to help the brand. So the Italian liquor maker is making a sweeping push for its luxe but lagging brand, hoping to attract North American consumers who may only know the drink from their grandmother's recipe for crepe Suzette. So the company has kicked off a marketing campaign for the drink, which is a blend of orange liqueur and cognac, centered on a multi-year partnership with the rapper Future. And this follows ads from earlier this year with the rapper 2 Chainz, and also brand appearances at places like the Grammys, Miami Music Week, and the NBA All-Star Weekend. So the company is trying to connect Grand Marnier for the first time to the world of hip-hop, which has a long and storied connection to cognac. So, of course, in the early 2000s, we had Busta Rhymes with his song, Pass the Cavassier. And Hennessy.
I like that. Woo! Sorry.
And of course, you know, Hennessy or Henny has been mentioned by many rappers, including Biggie and Cardi B. And previously, the brand really focused more on promoting its French heritage. So the new campaign will also host events such as tasting sessions and vinyl giveaways with the rapper Future next year, with kind of the hopes of just educating people on what exactly the drink is.
It's funny because I was cheering for you because you were doing the dance moves. So radio listeners know on Zoom you had pulled out the moves. Abby's wearing his shirt today. He wears a different Christmas sweater every day in December usually. He's wearing the one today that's got like a really stern, cool looking reindeer. And then I think there's a Grinch on there and there's Santa and it says straight out of the North Pole. Fits with the story.
Very nice. So the sweater industry is trying to get in on hip hop too.
apparently. What's going on in the markets so far?
So in Europe, markets are falling. Germany, the UK, and France are all down. In Asia, markets have also tumbled. So Japan, Shanghai, and Hong Kong are all down. Oil is down 2 cents to $70.56 US per barrel. Gold is up $24.80 to $2,612 US per ounce. And the dollar is up just over 1/4 cent, but it's still sitting at 69.5 cents US.
All right, Crystal, are you in tomorrow?
Yes, I'll be here tomorrow.
Awesome. I keep checking. It's the time of year where we lose people, and I don't want to miss a happy holiday, but we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Crystal Ramlakan joins us every day at this time via Zoom live with our business news from CBC. 13 minutes to 7 o'clock. Check the highways before you're out this morning. Check 511. It is slick in a lot of places, especially Winnipeg to Brandon, that section, and also Highway 10 up through Riding Mountain. We've just been getting some calls already about sheer ice, people slowing speeds. Even in the city of Winnipeg, we heard it's quite slick if you're out and about. That can happen also after they've been clearing streets. So just take it easy and watch for equipment as well. There'll be a lot of it. Remember the overnight parking ban, the residential parking ban in Winnipeg started last night at 7 o'clock, and then this morning 7 a.m., and now it's going to continue. So you're going to be seeing crews all over the place. Right now it is minus 15 in Winnipeg, and light snow is falling. Light snow is also falling in Brandon, where it's minus 18, and quite a bit colder up in Thompson, where it's clear and minus 31. Well, let's have a couple minutes of music to set up our next interview, because it is all about climate change and how it's going to be affecting winter. We do a lot of these interviews and talk about how much hotter summer could be getting in this country. But what would you do if you started losing wintry days? Here's Joni Mitchell and River.
Cutting down trees, they're putting up reindeer and singing songs of joy and peace. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. But it don't snow here, it stays pretty green I'm gonna make a lot of money, then I'm gonna quit this crazy scene. I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I wish I had a river so long I would teach my feet to fly. Skate away on. I made my baby cry. He tried hard to help me, you know, he put me at ease, and he loved me so not he made me weak in the knees. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I'm so hard to handle, I'm selfish and I'm sad. Now I gone and lost the best baby that I ever had. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on.
Well, Joni Mitchell and River. And in Winnipeg, of course, we still do have a river we can skate away on, but that's changing already in some Canadian cities. At least the duration of when those skating trails are frozen over certainly is. Up next on the show, let's have a look at some new data. There's new analysis by Climate Central, which is a science-based nonprofit group. It's an organization that estimates that cities like Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto have lost up to 19 winter days. Heavy snow and freezing temperatures are becoming less common from coast to coast to coast in Canada. For more on this, David Barrett is with us now. He's a research associate in the Department of Biological Sciences at the University of Calgary. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
It's interesting because just as we're talking here, I've been handed school cancellations because of poor weather and wintry conditions in Manitoba. I'll do those at the top. Manitoba is less affected in this report. We'll get to that in a moment. But how are warmer winters affecting the cities that I mentioned with activities like, skiing, ice skating?
Yeah, as you say, the major impacts are perhaps a little bit regional, obviously. But particularly kind of the Maritimes and coastal areas especially are seeing warming temperatures. We're seeing warming temperatures across the country, but they're seeing more days where it's above that 0 degree kind of threshold for snow and ice formation. So that's really changing what they see as far as weather, as well as what they are able to do during the winter period.
How do the changes affect, just to elaborate on this, people's sort of everyday lives in colder regions?
Yeah, so, we rely a lot for recreation, for cultural purposes, for infrastructure and transportation purposes. We rely a lot on cold weather and particularly the formation of ice, right? When you want to think about cultural identity for Canadians, I think a lot of people probably immediately start thinking of lacing up your skates and going to play shinny on the pond nearby. But what we're seeing is that that ice is coming on a little bit later on the lakes. It's leaving a little bit earlier, and we're seeing even across the country, even in the prairies, we're seeing a lot more variability, a lot more kind of a roller coaster of temperatures through the winter, which also impacts the safety of that ice, so whether or not we can go play shinny safely.
I was looking at the chart this morning that accompanies the story at cbc.ca, and the number of days that are being estimated to be lost varies, but it does say beside Manitoba 0. So can you talk a little bit about the differences regionally that we understand?
Totally, and the metric that was used for this report was that the number of days where the minimum temperature was above 0, and I've lived in the prairies for many years now, and we get that a little less frequently, shall we say, than perhaps coastal regions. That doesn't mean that it's not warming up and we're not seeing a shift to a little bit of a later onset of winter. It just means that during winter we're a little bit more consistently cold than some of the other more areas that are closer to the ocean, right?
Yeah.
So it is a little bit more from that metric, that measure of 0 degrees or warmer. We just don't see that. We don't reach that quite as frequently in the prairies. So by that measure, it's not as much change, but that's not to say that we're not seeing that warming pattern occurring, across the country, and actually at a faster rate, in the colder areas and particularly the more northern areas of the country.
So I guess just last, David, what might this mean for our identity? For years, there's always the question about how do we identify, who are we as Canadians? How do we describe ourselves? Because we're diverse and rich in country, but we often unite over the cold.
We do, right? What's our favorite thing to talk about? It's the cold weather and the winter, right? And again, it's kind of this cultural identity that we have of, this is what we do. We endure. We make the best out of the conditions, and often that's, strapping on some skis, you're going cross-country skiing, or going skating on the nearby pond. That's changing a little bit, or that will change over the next, couple of decades. We're going to see less time where we're able to do that. And, there's also a piece of cultural and spiritual impact where communities that rely on ice to access either traditional hunting land or, traditional areas or spiritually important areas, that might become a little bit harder to do as that, ice duration shrinks a little bit.
Well, we'll leave it there to get on all these school cancellations and closures because of the wintry weather. Thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, you bet. Stay warm.
Check out the full report at cbc.ca if you're interested in checking how the Canadian cities and different provinces compare. David Barrett's been with us, Research Associate in the Department of Biological Sciences at the University of Calgary. So before we turn to headlines, let's turn to the school cancellations and closures because of wintry road conditions, poor weather and road conditions. So all schools and no buses running in Southwest Horizon School Division, in Turtle Mountain, in Prairie Spirit School Division, in Prairie Rose School Division, Region A schools are all closed. In Brandon School Division, buses aren't operating outside the city of Brandon, so no rural buses. In addition, Alexander, O'Kelly, and Spring Valley schools are closed. In Rolling River School Division, buses are canceled as well, but school is on there. And due to street conditions in the city, we're being told to pass along that you should expect delays. So that's a lot of info for you all over the province in terms of closures. But in terms of the street conditions in the city, give us a call, 788-3093 on the highway as well, to let us know what you're seeing. We have had some early morning calls. Corey picked up the phone and heard from folks through Riding Mountain that were slowing their speeds, and also from Highway 1 from Winnipeg to Brandon, apparently really slick. And snow plows are out there as well doing residential clear up in the city of Winnipeg. So it could be a bit of a challenge in the city as well. 788-3093. Just doing your traffic report here while we're on the topic. 788-3093 is where you can reach us if you have any other issues to pass along. Right now, before we look at our full weather forecast and tee up the next hour, let's turn to Heather Wells with our news headlines.
Good morning. Well, after more than 7 months living in a hotel room, Joyce Hilborn will soon be able to go home. She and 250 tenants were forced out suddenly without notice from Birchwood Terrace earlier this year. Severe deterioration had been found in parts of the building structure. Hilborn's happy she's going home, but still hasn't been given a date. We'll hear more about that. And contentious planning framework for Winnipeg and its neighboring municipalities goes to a vote today. Plan 2050 would coordinate planning and land use standards for the city of Winnipeg and 17 of its neighbours. However, several mayors and reeves strongly oppose this plan. We'll hear more coming up in our next news at 7:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
So we have a snowfall warning advisory for Emerson, Franklin, Stewart Burn, Winkler, Pilot Mount, Boissevain, Souris. You're expecting about 10 centimeters of snow still in the system. Winnipeg kind of trailing off with just a couple centimeters. Our high today in the city -14. Right now it's -15. And that's our current conditions. In the next hour of Information Radio, the mayor of the city of Winnipeg is here, and you have a lot of questions for him. Everything from snow clearing to the property tax hike that is proposed in this latest budget document. So we're going to talk to Mayor Scott Gillingham in our monthly interview at 7:45. He's live in studio. We'll ask him about your questions and more. In addition, we have a couple of other studio guests that will join us. One of them is part of our series looking at the declining fertility rate in this country. We are going to hear from a Winnipeg woman who says she faced pushback from her doctor while trying to get a tubal ligation. After 5 years, she says, of advocating for herself, she finally gave up asking, and we're going to talk about her experience in the medical system. And then at 7:40 this morning, it is the only Kwanzaa event happening in our city, and you're invited. We're going to talk to the organization that's making it all happen. Stay tuned. A busy hour ahead. on Information Radio. This is CBC. World Reports next.
On The Current.
I love French fries, you love French fries, French fries, French fries.
There are allegations that a potato cartel is behind the rising cost of your French fries and tater tots. One expert has solutions for this and other monopolies in the country that have many Canadians feeling frustrated. It's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. French feminists are celebrating. The verdicts are in for what has been a shocking mass rape trial. All 51 men have been found guilty of assaulting Gisèle Pellicot, including her now former husband. He admitted to drugging her and recruiting others to rape her. The CBC's Sarah Levitt has been following this trial, and she joins me now from our London studio. And Sarah, Gisèle Pellicot addressed reporters after the verdict. What did she say?
Marcia, with the same poise she's shown throughout this trial, Gisèle first thanked her family, lawyers, and supporters, saying that the trial has been extremely difficult. She also said she was thinking of all the families affected by the case, and she spent a moment talking about all the unknown victims of sexual assault. She said, "I want you to know we share the same fight." As for why she waived her right to anonymity, here's what she said.
When I opened the doors to this trial, I wanted society to be able to take part in this debate. I have never regretted that decision. I have confidence in our ability to collectively grasp a future in which everyone, women and men alike, can live in harmony with mutual respect and understanding.
All these men have been charged with sexual assault, attempted rape, or aggravated rape. What happens now?
Well, for most of them, it's off to prison. Gisèle's ex-husband, Dominique Pellicot, was given a 20-year sentence. That's the maximum. The other men received a range between 3 and 15 years. At least 5 of the men are free. That's due to suspended sentences or time already being served. For the children of Gisèle Pellicot, those sentences are not good enough. They say they're disappointed. Now the men have 10 days to decide if they will appeal.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
The CBC's Sarah Levitt reporting from London. The U.S. government is inching closer towards a shutdown. A funding bill meant to avert it was rejected by Republicans in Congress. Both Donald Trump and Elon Musk told lawmakers not to support it. The CBC's Richard Madden is following this story for us. And Richard, take us through what happened.
Yeah, it's a stunning turn of events. Mere hours after House Speaker Mike Johnson appeared to have reached a bipartisan deal to keep the U.S. government open, incoming President Donald Trump blew it up, saying it's stuffed with too many giveaways to Democrats. He echoed earlier post by Elon Musk, the world's richest man who's been appointed by Trump to oversee government spending. Musk trashed the bill and threatened any Republican who supported it with their political demise. Now, the bill allows the government to pay its bills through until next March, but it also includes unrelated spending, about $100 billion for disaster aid, $10 billion for farmers, but it also gives pay raises to members of Congress. So after Musk put out the warning, Republicans quickly fell in line. This spending bill is dead, and the government is now on the brink of shutting down right before Christmas. Now, House Democrats say the chaos can all be blamed on Republicans and question who's calling the shots. Is it Trump or Musk? Here's Minority House Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
House Republicans will now own any harm that is visited upon the American people that results from a government shutdown or worse.
Not only does this put the Speaker and Republicans under pressure to start over, it also previews the challenges Republicans will have to manage when Trump takes office and the outsized power of Trump's inner circle who threaten their careers if they don't obey.
So what happens now?
Yeah, so House leadership needs to come up with a plan B. Maybe they have to start all over again with a smaller version that Democrats could support, but the pressure is clearly on Speaker Johnson because he needs to come up with a plan before the government's own deadline of midnight Friday.
All right, thank you, Richard.
You bet.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. In Yemen, fire trucks are at a power plant in Sana'a. It was targeted by Israeli airstrikes overnight, along with other energy infrastructure. A Houthi-run news station says 9 people were killed, and Israel's defense minister is warning there will be more.
מי שפוגע ייפגע קשות שבעתיים.
Israel Katz says whoever strikes Israel will be hit sevenfold. The Houthis fired a missile at central Israel yesterday. It was intercepted. The shrapnel damaged a school building. French President Emmanuel Macron has arrived in Mayotte 5 days after Cyclone Cheeto hit the island. A helicopter takes Macron around the island to get an aerial view. Parts of the island are still inaccessible because of the damage from Cheeto. Local hospitals have confirmed 31 deaths, but officials say hundreds or thousands more could have died. The plane Macron arrived on was also carrying 4 tons of food and medical supplies, as well as more rescue personnel. We have an update to a story we brought you yesterday about 2 police officers on Vancouver Island who were charged with the sexual assault of a vulnerable woman they met while on duty. CBC News has now learned one of those officers has died by suicide. 43-year-old Matthew Ball was suspended by the Central Saanich Police Services. The RCMP has only said a body was found in a forested area 40 kilometers northwest of Victoria. A coroner's inquest is recommending significant changes at the Ottawa Police Service. It's been looking at the violent arrest and death of Abdirahman Abdi. The 38-year-old Somali Canadian struggled with his mental health. The inquest is complete, and with its recommendations, it is trying to prevent more altercations like the one that killed Abdi. Guy Kenville reports.
The chain of events leading to Abdirahman Abdi's death began on a summer day in 2016, when 2 Ottawa police officers tried to arrest him for groping people near a coffee shop. He resisted, and one officer punched him several times in the head. Abdi died the next day. The coroner's jury called it homicide, and they made 57 recommendations. Nearly half of those are directed at the Ottawa Police Service, calling on them to create a, quote, coordinated and cohesive strategy for dealing with people in crisis. It also suggests Ottawa Police's 911 call center create a new code to clearly signal to responding officers that a call involves mental health. The inquest heard police took convincing before Abdi's family was allowed to go in his hospital room and say a final Muslim prayer. That's why Ifra Yusuf was glad to see a recommendation calling for family wishes to be balanced with the need to protect ongoing investigations. She's with a coalition formed in the wake of Abdi's death.
Just not enough care, I would say, when it came to Abdirahman in the hospital and making sure that his loved ones were able to communicate and be there for him.
But for the Abdi family, the calls for change coming long after the events are, as their lawyer Lawrence Greenspan says,
too little, too late.
The officer who punched Abdi was charged with manslaughter. A judge acquitted him in 2020. Guy Kenville, CBC News, Ottawa.
It's been almost a week since Canada's GST holiday began, but one industry in particular is still wondering why it wasn't included. As Natalia Goodwin reports, Canada's craft distilleries were hoping to give their customers a tax break too.
Either they didn't think about it or they have a problem with spirits and they're actively looking to harm or exclude the sector.
Alex Hamer is the founder of Artisan Distilleries Canada. He can't comprehend why the industry would have been left out of the tax break.
What's the purpose? How was this thought about? How were these products determined?
At SFR Distillery in Ottawa, General Manager Adam Brierley is wondering the same thing and worried it will mean less sales.
We're pretty much the only excluded beverage across alcoholic and non-alcoholic options, which is quite frustrating.
He says the industry in Ontario has been hit with a double whammy in recent months, the tax break and being left off the shelf when Premier Doug Ford expanded where liquor could be sold. Ontario's Department of Finance told CBC that spirits will continue to be sold exclusively at the LCBO, a decision it says aligns with other Canadian jurisdictions and ensures socially responsible sales. But Brierley isn't buying it. He points to other countries where spirits are sold outside dedicated shops and says it seems that here they're dealing with a bad rep.
There are many viable options to sell spirits that our governments, federally and provincially, just don't seem to be interested in considering.
CBC reached out to the Federal Department of Finance for comment. They have yet to respond to our questions. Natalia Goodwin, CBC News, Ottawa.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are with Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. On a busy Thursday morning, light snow falling. Thanks so much for being with us today. Well, in a moment, we're going to read the list of school closures. We have lots of cancellations this morning. The conditions, if you're driving, walking, or rolling out there, are not great. So there's equipment out clearing, but there's some really slippery conditions. So it's all about ice today. So stay tuned. I'll have that list for you. Also, to the interviews this hour, we are going to be talking to the mayor of the city of Winnipeg. So Winnipeg property owners, you're facing the largest municipal property tax hike in 34 years. So we will be asking about that. We're going to talk about snow clearing. We are also going to talk about when we might find out who our new police chief is. So stay tuned. Mayor Scott Gillingham is going to be here live at 7:45. Plus, we continue our series about being child-free and looking at this country's low fertility rate. We're going to hear from a Winnipeg woman who said she faced pushback from her doctor. She was trying to make her choice to have a tubal ligation. And then she says after 5 years of advocating for herself, she finally gave up. We're going to talk to her about her experience in the medical system, so stay tuned for that. Right now, though, Heather Wells is in with updates on other news stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a man with a rare degenerative disease may have to leave Manitoba because this province won't cover the cost of his treatment. Jeremy Bray has spinal muscular atrophy, and it's robbing the 29-year-old of the ability to move his muscles. Treatment can cost up to $300,000 in the first year, but the province will not cover it. We'll hear that story coming up. The daughter of a senior who has been missing for more than a year hopes recommendations from a review into his disappearance prevent similar incidents. We're going to hear from Earl Moberg's daughter and her comments about a review by the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority about what led to her dad's disappearance and how to stop that from happening to other seniors. Our next local news is coming up at 7:30.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, with a brief look at our weather today, here's Abby.
Snow drifts will be a major concern this morning in southern Manitoba. We have that snowfall warning in effect for most of the area, so you want to take it out there. Winnipeg currently minus 15, light snow whipping around in the city. Take care, that should taper off as we get late into the morning, leaving behind cloudy conditions. We should see 2 to 4 centimeters of snow once the system goes by. We get to a high of minus 14. The wind chill is just something to take into consideration. It's going to be feeling like minus 24.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
We have a long list here of school cancellations. So here's what's closed. Southwest Horizon School Division closed today. Obviously, no buses, no school. Staff are assigned there to work from home. Turtle Mountain School Division is closed. Prairie Spirit School Division is closed. In Prairie Rose School Division, Region A schools are closed. So that is Carmen Collegiate, École Carmen Elementary School, Elm Creek School, Miami School, and Roland School. Region A Hatarian school sites are Blooming Prairie, Boyne View, Eagle Creek, as well as Maple Creek, Rosebank, and Skyview. So that's the Prairie Rose Region A list. Brandon School Division is not running buses outside of the city of Brandon today. Alexander O'Kelly and Spring Valley schools are closed there. there. Also, in Rolling River School Division, buses are canceled entirely today, but school is on there. So school is on in Rolling River. And finally, due to street conditions in the city, please expect delays. And that's interesting because, Corey, we don't often get that note, but it is slick out there.
Yeah, it is. We've heard from a few folks, from Megan, who just came and said just very, very slippery. Even heard from Dan on a bike who said that the bike lanes, they're plowed, lovely, but also polished. So very, very slippery just across the board, highways and roads in and out of the city. In particular, heard through Riding Mountain, it's pretty bad. Also looking at Manitoba 511 right now, and all the highways are pretty much on highway in western Manitoba right now. You could assume it's going to be poor visibility and also slick. Heard from Keith about some snow drifts, particularly west of Glenborough on Highway 2. So do look out for that. Poor conditions just all around on the highways this morning if you're in southern Manitoba. If you hear anything else going on out there, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll let folks know what you're seeing. 204-788-3093.
7:15 a.m. is the time right now. Well, we continue our series now looking at the declining rate of fertility across Canada and an increasing number of people choosing not to have children. Earlier this week, we heard from young childless men who decided to get vasectomies. And for many of them, the process, they say, was simple and straightforward. And they faced some, but most of them said little pushback from medical professionals, which is a change for many doctors, including Dr. Errol Billenkoff.
I used to pretty much refuse it in cases where I didn't think it was appropriate. But through conversations with the other doctors as part of this international chat group, that exact topic did come up, and there was quite a range of attitudes about it. On one end, you've got people saying, no, there's no way you should do a vasectomy on a 23-year-old with no kids, and then others are saying, well, they got the right to, have it if they want it. Who are we to interfere with that decision? And so I think more and more we're realizing that it's really not our choice, but it's really their choice.
Well, the situation around this, the doctors and choices and patients and what they would like is not necessarily the same for women hoping to get a similar procedure. Melanie Zabrinsky says she never wanted kids, and she asked her doctor for a tubal ligation for years before giving up. For those who've never heard of this is a procedure where a woman's fallopian tubes are tied or blocked, and that prevents pregnancy. Melanie joins us now to talk about her experience and to add to our series as we look at these stories individually. Really grateful you're here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you asked your doctor about getting a tubal ligation first when? How old were you, and what was the conversation like?
The first time I asked, I was 22. And there really wasn't much of a conversation that time. It was kind of laughed off. He actually laughed and then moved on. He thought I was joking. And then it took a few more times of asking to get different responses, all no, but just in different ways.
So laughed at you how? Laughed and said, no, you don't want this? Or laughed with no explanation, leaving you feeling, what did you feel like in that moment?
Yeah, it was kind of just a dismissive laugh. He didn't say anything. He just kind of chuckled to himself and then went on his way with what was next. And I don't know, I kind of figured maybe the first time it was a bit of a misunderstanding. He didn't really think I was serious or didn't understand what I had said.
So you asked again, I alluded to this. Is that right? For 5 years you kept asking?
Yeah, I kept trying until I was about 26, and then I kind of just gave up.
So what was the response along the way? Was there just continued laughter, or what were the conversations like as you kept asking then?
So it was always the basic point he always came to was, I don't know what I actually want. I was told I was too young and I will change my mind one day. I was told that I have to be at least 30 and already have kids. I was told, well, what about someday when your future husband wants kids? And that one hit me pretty hard.
Why?
It just felt like, because I was single at the time, and it felt like someone from my future, a man who I have never met before, still had more power over my body and my decisions than I did right then and there. And with my wants, if I was with somebody who did want kids, then they would not be my future husband.
Because you didn't want kids.
Yeah.
Were you able to, not that I'm putting this on you, but I'm curious, were you able to articulate any of this in those moments with the doctor?
Oh, no. No. No, I was still trying to understand how it was making me feel. And it was just also dismissive that it was like it wouldn't matter if I said how I was feeling. My feelings weren't the point.
Yeah. You had obviously also a patient-doctor power imbalance there, and then you were saying this as a male doctor and you were a younger woman. So
yes.
Who did you talk to about this after? Like, did you leave for all those years trying to have this conversation with your medical professional and not feel heard? I'm just curious. Did you then go back and get mad or try to express your feelings somewhere or try to make sense of this? Like,
it took me a while of sitting with it to fully understand the depth of what was happening. And I actually found support in like online groups on Facebook and talking with other women who have experienced the same things.
During our series, you should know that people wrote in, and we'll be grateful to hear your interview this morning because other women wrote in actually saying, please talk about this. There are a lot of birth control options available to women. Why for you was tubal ligation the right choice for you versus, I guess, something like the pill or an IUD?
So with the pill, with anything hormonal, there are a lot of side effects for me personally, and I know for a lot of other people, that just it's not a feasible option. And with the IUD, there are other side effects as well. Like there's the hormonal one, same story, and there's the copper one, which it isn't hormonal, but it's also very painful to have inserted and removed. And there are a lot of testimonies of women who then experience like more pain during their cycle because of it.
So some concerns around the other things made your choice clearer for you.
Yeah.
Your fiance actually was on the air as part of our series this week talking about getting a vasectomy. Now, I'm raising this because I wonder how you felt when you heard, he wasn't getting the same pushback that you've just described when he went to ask for that procedure.
At that point, it's been so long, and I've spoken with so many people. I wasn't surprised. I'm happy he was able to because that just makes both of our lives better. But it's still just really sad, the difference in the imbalance in who's asking for what.
Were you treated any differently by other medical professionals along the way? Because obviously you asked this doctor to begin with over and over, and then you said just dropped it. Mm-hmm. But did you go somewhere else and have a different response ever, or maybe the same response?
No, I didn't get a new doctor until just a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And it wasn't long after that Daniel got his procedure done, so
it became a non-issue for you.
Yeah.
We did ask the province about women getting pushback from their healthcare provider when requesting a tubal ligation. So the province told us, quote, the physician would determine whether or not to perform the procedure based on their medical assessment, end quotes. What are your initial thoughts when you hear that against what happened to you?
I think that's very well and good on paper, but I don't think that's what happens. I think there's a lot of personal bias that comes into play as well. I mean, if that was just, and that's very open to interpretation as well.
Interpretation how?
Like based on the medical.
The term medical assessment.
Medical assessment, yeah. I feel like, I don't know, like what does that cover?
Would you have been open to like what part of the conversation went too far for you? It's pretty obvious in your case, being like, somebody laughed you out of the room and was saying, they're telling you what decision's best for you, really literally. But the conversation around the decision, would that have been something welcome to you?
If there was a benefit to it, yes.
But this obviously had no benefit.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who is listening that may be considering or wants to get a tubal ligation, but is, or wants to get one rather, but is right now facing pushback from medical professionals? I wonder.
Be stubborn. Be the most stubborn you've been in your life, and look for other resources as well. Ask different people. There's now actually a list on Reddit of doctors who are willing to help people. So that's a great resource as well. Yeah, just be the best advocate you can be for yourself.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us as part of our series, Melanie. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
That's Melanie Zabrinsky live in studio with us today. She's now 32-year-old Winnipegger. Now, as we mentioned, we spoke to the province, or asked the province rather, about why women appear to have more difficulty getting a tubal ligation than men facing getting a vasectomy. They did reply to that question directly with a short email. The spokesperson said, quote, tubal ligation is an insured service through Manitoba Health Benefits. The physician would determine whether or not to perform the procedure based on their medical assessment, end quote. So once again, medical assessment factoring into that response also. If you want to weigh in on our series, by the way, we continue to look for stories as we build the series out. You can call us at 788-3205.
Breaking news happens anywhere, anytime.
Police have warned the protesters repeatedly, get back.
CBC News brings the story to you as it happens.
Hundreds of wildfires are burning.
Be the first to know what's going on and what that means for you and for Canadians.
This situation has changed very quickly.
Helping make sense of the world when it matters most. Stay in the know. CBC News.
All right, we're going to make sense of some of the preliminary budget that came out, or the proposed budget that came out, I should be saying, for 2025. So you've probably been hearing this. Yeah, the preliminary budget. I guess it is proposals in the preliminary budget. But you've been hearing the top line, which is about taxes, of course, a change in snow clearing thresholds. We asked you what you would ask the mayor of the city of Winnipeg, and you've been writing in with your responses. So some of you writing in about with questions about transit. Others have been writing in talking very specifically about the situations on the roadways. So I'm actually going to share some of those with the mayor, so I'll save those for there. But some of you talking about, living on bays where there's seniors and a school at the end of the street. One woman wrote to us this morning, Winnipegger, and said, what do we do then when the snow accumulation piles up further? It's going to be icy and hazardous. Into our interview with the mayor as well this morning. So Scott Gillingham here in the next half hour. Right now it is 7:25 a.m. and time to touch base with Scott Reguer, who's here via Zoom with sports. Hey there.
Good morning, Marcy.
So let's start with the Jets. They could not hold on to their lead in Anaheim last night.
No, thanks in large part to backup goalie Eric Comrie. The Jets were, on their way to finishing this Mums trip with a win, Marcy. However, with under 5 minutes to play, Ducks forward Frank Vetrano changed their fate. He scored to tie things before he assisted on the game winner with less than a minute remaining. After their historic opening to the season, Marcy, the Jets have regressed a little bit. The main difference being a lack of goal scoring. The team's averaging about 2 fewer tallies per game than they were at the start of the season. Head coach Scott Arniel, though, he's keeping things in perspective.
Well, it's a tough league. In the NHL here, you're not going to go 18-1, and you knew that it was going to be some hard days. The schedule is hard for everybody with this 4 seasons tournament coming. But at the end of the day, we're still right in the thick of things. We're in a very tough division in the West, sitting on top of the league right now. So nothing's ever been handed out in December, and we had a great start, but there's a lot of hockey still to go.
And just to be clear, it's the Four Nations Cup coming up, not the Four Seasons. I think the coach has been staying in nicer hotels than us. Winnipeg with 2 more games before the holiday break. First up, Saturday at home to Minnesota. Meantime, in the Professional Women's Hockey League, de facto Team Manitoba, the Toronto Scepters, they fell last night to the New York Sirens.
Let's go to soccer next, and a concept that just really won't go away.
No, so this is the concept, Marcy, of a European Super League. This would be a league for only the continent's top teams, teams like Real Madrid, Manchester City, Juventus. A few years ago, they were among the clubs proposing a 20-team elite tournament that was largely closed because 15 of them were guaranteed to be protected from ever being relegated. The plan collapsed almost immediately when the 6 English sides meant to be part of it pulled out amid a backlash from their fans and from the British government. But this week, a group calling itself A22 has applied to both FIFA and soccer's European governing body, UEFA, to consider a different Super League idea. This would be called the Unify League and envisions a cross-continental circuit containing 96 teams. Former Liverpool defender Jamie Carragher shared his thoughts on the idea.
It all fell apart because of the Premier League, and I think it'll all fall down again or be resurrected because of the Premier League. The reason this is getting created is because of the Premier League. The Premier League is the Super League. These clubs cannot believe the money and the revenue that teams that finish probably 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 in our league pick up.
Carragher's right. Just being in the English Premiership nets a team's owner about $250 million a year after things like TV rights are factored in. So it's a huge business. If this latest proposal by the A22 group is something that works better for fans, for players, or teams, then UEFA and FIFA, they're legally bound to consider it. So stay tuned.
Let's finish with the latest from the World Championship of Darts.
Hamilton's Matt Campbell, Canada's lone hope, Marcy, at the event, which is going on in Old Blighty. He plays his first match this afternoon. It's against a player from Austria. Now, he's a welder by trade, and Campbell was asked what he loves about his sport.
Honestly, I really don't like the game. I love the competition and the people, right? Like, if somebody's going to push me, I want to push them. So that's the part I love about any sport is competition.
Just doesn't like the game itself. Matt Ginger Ninja Campbell. He is ranked 55th in the world. He competes at 1 Central Time this afternoon.
What a great moniker, right? All right, thanks a lot.
You bet.
Cole, coming up after the 7:30 news, no matter how or what you celebrate, the holidays are all about food, community, and love. Still ahead, we're going to talk to a Winnipeg woman that is inviting all of you to experience the magic of Kwanzaa and all of its many traditions. And the full list of school closures and school divisions affected by poor roads in rural Manitoba coming up after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30 minus 15 in downtown Winnipeg. We do have light and blowing snow right now. Our high today is minus 14. The snow ending later this morning. And then tomorrow, sunny but colder. A man with a rare degenerative disease may have to leave Manitoba because the province won't cover the cost of his treatment. Jeremy Bray has spinal muscular atrophy. It has gradually robbed the 29-year-old of the ability to move his muscles. Treatment can stop the disease's progression, but the drug Bray needs, risdiplam, could cost as much as $300,000 in the first year of treatment. The province says it won't cover the drug because Bray is older than Health Canada's cutoff of 25. Now Bray and his family are considering moving to Saskatchewan. It's one of the provinces that has granted exceptions for risdiplam's use.
I love isn't willing to take those steps that other provinces are and have been taken. It's very, very frustrating.
Manitoba Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera says they're willing to meet with Bray, but says it is up to Canada's drug agency to change its recommendation. The daughter of a senior who has been missing for just over a year hopes recommendations from the review into his disappearance prevents similar incidents. Earl Moberg was last seen leaving his house in River East December 12, 2023. The 81-year-old suffered from dementia. His disappearance has since been determined to have been a critical incident by the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority. Moberg's daughter, Britt, says a recommendation by the WRHA to make sure home care is more flexible is important.
If my mom had the opportunity to say, this is when I'm working, I'd really like to have somebody to be there at the time when she's away. And, also when my dad was more likely to wander and when he was more likely to be, confused, that certainly, could have been life-saving for my dad.
Moberg says while her father is presumed dead, her family hopes to find his remains and give him a proper burial. People forced out of Birchwood Terrace will soon be able to go home.
Yes, we get to go home. Yes, we get to go home.
For Debbie Ross and her 2 cats, it has been more than 7 months of waiting. Ross and 250 other tenants were suddenly forced from their homes earlier this year because of structural problems. And while she is ready to return, Ross says after months of renovation, she doesn't know what she's going home to.
We don't know how many people were in our apartment. And I'm very grateful for what they've done. But I would like the keys changed, the locks changed there. Plus, I would like more notice than this to go back home.
Still, Ross and the others have not been given an exact date when they can go back. Frustration boiled over for Manitoba chiefs who say Ottawa is stalling on payments for First Nation children's health and educational needs. The chiefs met with officials from Indigenous Services Canada in Winnipeg yesterday. They wanted answers on when payments for applications under the Jordan's Principle program would be made. The Manitoba backlog has grown to 6,000 cases. Nisichawayasik Cree Nation Chief Angela Levasseur says they were stonewalled by bureaucrats.
We were very clear in terms of what the answers were that we wanted to have. And I just felt it was a grave display of disrespect towards our First Nations chiefs.
The Canadian Human Rights Tribunal ruled last month Canada must immediately address the logjam with Jordan's Principle cases. The Manitoba chiefs are not ruling out legal action. A contentious planning framework for Winnipeg and its neighbouring municipalities goes to a vote today. Plan 2050 would coordinate planning and land use standards for the city and 17 of its neighbours. Several mayors and reeves strongly opposed this plan, and some expected it to be defeated at a meeting of the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region. The province has already introduced legislation to allow municipalities to opt out. Glenn Simard is Manitoba's Municipal Relations Minister.
Most important part of all of this is that they have the freedom to make their own planning decisions, and they're not going to be dictated or forced into something perhaps the community doesn't want.
Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham has said the Manitoba Capital Region will lose business if there's no regional coordination on infrastructure. Well, a tough time in Anaheim.
Shifley scores! Mark Shifley off a brilliant setup from Kyle Connor, and the Jets have their first lead.
Mark Shifley in the third period on TSN, but the Ducks would reply twice and take the win, 3-2. In goal for Winnipeg, backup netminder Eric Comrie. A clearly frustrated Jets coach, Scott Arniel, says Comrie stood on his head for the team.
Shifley scores!
That's so good, you just have to hear it again. Here's Scott Arniel.
I knew that we were gonna be slow to get out of the gate. Anaheim hadn't played, and we were coming in off of a win last night. And you know what? We knew we were gonna be slow, but it took us 2 periods to get going. And he really held the fort for us, played strong, and it's disappointing that we couldn't have got him a point tonight or two.
The Jets, their moms and sisters all head home now. Winnipeg plays again Saturday, hosting the Minnesota Wild. You can find more Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into a regional forecast. Here's Abby.
Snowdrift is a concern this morning in southern Manitoba, friends. We have that snowfall warning in effect for the Red River Valley region and surrounding areas. In Winnipeg, we are at -15. Light snow was seen at this point. It's also drifting, but that should taper off later this morning, leaving cloudy conditions. Across the region, we're seeing the snow, which will continue for Morden, Brandon, Dauphin. Temperatures will be between -15 and -19 in these areas, but wind chill is a concern.
It's also slicking up the road, so here's what's closed. Southwest Horizon School Division is closed today, staff working from home. Turtle Mountain is closed, Prairie Spirit is closed, and Prairie Rose School Division Region A schools are closed. Brandon School Division isn't operating rural buses. In addition, Alexander O'Kelly and Spring Valley schools are closed. Due to street conditions in the city of Winnipeg, we're told to expect delays. And finally, back out to rural areas. Rolling River School Division, buses are canceled, but school is on. And Reston School is closed. Fort LaBosse School Division is not running buses either. So Reston School's in that division, it's closed, but otherwise no buses in Fort LaBosse. All right, 7:38. Corey, anything else from the commute?
Yeah, just assume that if you're hitting the road today, it's not going to be ideal conditions. Western Manitoba, very poor visibility, and even where it is plowed, it's very slick, hearing about that in the city, outside of the city. So just be careful if you're hitting the highways. If you want to give me any more updates, what you're seeing, 204-788-3093.
Matunda, matunda, ya Kwanzaa, ya Kwanzaa, matunda, matunda, ya Kwanzaa, ya Kwanzaa, matunda. Happy Kwanzaa, ya Kwanzaa, brotherhood of man. Ya Kwanzaa, ya Kwanzaa, matunda. Happy Kwanzaa.
We're listening to Matunda, ya Kwanzaa by Rockapella. It is a song all about Kwanzaa. For almost 60 years, millions of people around the world have been observing the holiday from December 26th to January 1st. And if you may have heard of Kwanzaa, you may have heard of Kwanzaa, you may not have celebrated Kwanzaa. But a Manitoba group wants to change that and invite you. At the end of the month, the Congress of Black Women of Manitoba is hosting their annual Kwanzaa event in Winnipeg. It's the only event of its kind in our city. Natalie Bell is the group's president, and she only started celebrating Kwanzaa as an adult, she says, after hearing about it in an unusual way. And Natalie is on Zoom with us this morning. Hey there.
Hello, good morning.
I love the music. It just evokes a sense of joy.
It's community, it's feeling, it's such a good vibe.
It totally is such a good vibe. We should actually start, I guess, Natalie, before we hear how you heard about Kwanzaa or why you started celebrating. If someone's not familiar with the holiday, how do you describe it?
So I would say it's an annual Pan-African celebration about culture. It initially started with the harvest, celebrating the harvest. So many of the components that are part of Kwanzaa really speak to the harvest. And it's a day where it's not a day, it's a week where it's a cultural holiday, not a religious one. And therefore, anyone of all religions or faiths are welcome to celebrate with us.
The principles that are celebrated are really beautiful. Things, unity, self-determination, cooperative economics, collective work and responsibility, purpose, creativity, faith.
Yes.
Tell me now the origin story of how you came to understand Kwanzaa and what drew you to it.
So I've always known of Kwanzaa as an American celebration. I always saw it through TV shows that I've watched or movies or what have you. And so I didn't realize that it was something that was for anyone else, especially us in Canada. And so I'm so grateful to have been a part of the Congress of Black Women of Manitoba because they have consistently celebrated Kwanzaa for years and years and years. And so now it's bringing the Kwanzaa celebration to a broader network of people and to our city. There may be local groups of people who perhaps celebrate in their homes, but we're bringing it out to everyone in the general public to come celebrate with us.
What misconceptions do you think people have about Kwanzaa?
Well, number one is that it's not a religious holiday. Okay, it is really about celebrating community, food, music, dancing, gifts. It's a cultural holiday. It's all about making sure we have some togetherness and unity. Unity being the first day that is celebrated on December 26th. Umoja is how it's pronounced. So it's really, the misconception is that, I can't celebrate it because I'm this religion or I'm this faith, or I can't celebrate it because perhaps I'm non-Black. It's not that at all. It's all about community and togetherness and unity, and everyone is welcome.
On December 29th, then, let's talk about what's going to be happening. So the Congress of Black Women will be hosting the Kwanzaa event. What specifically is going to be going on there?
So we have our regular programming, which includes welcoming everyone. We will have some storytelling activities / crafts related to Kwanzaa. We will have a presentation that helps everyone learn what Kwanzaa is. We do the lighting of the candles, which is the kinara, also a Swahili word for candle holder. We will be doing that. And then, of course, engaging in food, which is the best way to bring people together. And of course, we will have some gifts for the kids who are registered in time.
To watch this evolve over the years, sort of in the social consciousness, is very interesting because you first sort of heard about Kwanzaa or thought about Kwanzaa in a different way is it from a television show? Because I think you and I were watching the same show. Because I know what you're going to say.
See it on things like some of the Black television shows that I watched, things like A Different World. They would talk about Happy Kwanzaa. And I'm like, oh, that must be an American thing. And so it was, initiated, I guess 1966, I think it was. And it was for helping those of us who have African descent have an opportunity to celebrate our heritage. So it's not African American. It's an African American who started it, but anyone who has African descent can celebrate and celebrate their heritage.
What advice would you give people, Natalie, before you leave this morning, who might want to come to the event? They've never celebrated Kwanzaa before, but they're going to accept the invitation and come out. What should they know?
Oh, it's a great time. It's not only a great time for learning something new, it's a great time to connect with communities. And that's how this world becomes a better place, by communities connecting with each other. And so register with us on our website. We've got an Eventbrite link that you can sign up for. It's only $10 for adults. Kids 12 and under are free. Please register their ages so we can have a gift prepared for them. Come ready to dance, come ready to listen to music, come ready to eat, of course, and just learn something new that perhaps you had no idea about, or like me, where you thought it was something that wasn't for you. It's for you. You're very welcome to come. The Congress of Black Women of Manitoba would be very happy to have all of you.
Always love having you on, Natalie. Thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Yeah, you
Stay
too.
warm.
Nice to see you. Natalie Bell, president of the Congress of Black Women Manitoba. So Kwanzaa is December 26th to January 1st is when it's observed. On December 29th is the event we're talking about. The Congress will host their Kwanzaa celebration at the Jamaican Association of Winnipeg in the city's West End.
We sing one nation, sing and celebrate.
7:45 a.m. and as the Kwanzaa music goes behind us, I have one more thing that's been added to the list. During our interview about Kwanzaa, Heather Wells came in and added to our school cancellations list. So Mennonite Collegiate Institute in Gretna is closed. That is because of just poor conditions out there overall. All over the province, we've got some really bad highway conditions. But here's the sad part. Their Christmas concert tonight's also canceled, Mennonite Collegiate Institute. So that is in Gretna. And concert is obviously off tonight. And school is closed this morning. By the way, you can check our website if you want to see this lengthy list of how things have been impacted today by the weather in Manitoba. Well, next in the show, it's time for today's monthly interview with Mayor Scott Gillingham, who is in studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
So let's start with what you called a really, really difficult decision. This is the proposed 5.95% hike on property taxes proposed in the preliminary budget. Before we talk about it, here's some Winnipeggers reacting to what would be the largest property tax hike in 34 years.
The city could cut back on more things that are in their budget that isn't needed so much as hitting the homeowners with the property tax, which stops you from doing a lot of things. And it's not like they're coming and asking us. City council doesn't come and ask what you want, they just do.
Generally, I don't have a problem with property taxes. Where it goes is more the issue. I find the city wastes a lot of money on things. When I see construction being paid by the city and it is clearly not doing it in an efficient manner, why do I want to pay for it?
So Mayor Gillingham, what do you say to the idea that you're not being efficient with the public purse, that criticism?
Well, this preliminary budget, yes, it proposes a 5.9% property tax increase, but there's also clear instruction in the budget to control costs. So our CFO has been instructed, and she's already started to look at how the city can do a better job within departments of controlling costs. And in fact, Marcy, one of the first things that she'll be tackling is some of the highest priced, as it were, budgets, the budgets that are the highest budgets, drilling into those to see where we can find efficiencies and cost savings as well. So I take that very seriously. I know that if we as a council and I as a mayor are asking property taxpayers to pay a little more, they also expect us to control our costs. I'll add, though, that the city of Winnipeg, even with this property tax increase, will still have the lowest municipal property taxes of any major city in Canada. And we have been really behind most other major cities in raising property taxes.
Why have we been so behind? I mean, you were finance chair for the city long before you were mayor. Were you screaming at the tables, we need to raise taxes? And if you weren't, why not?
Well, we did talk for sure, always about the need for more revenue. Several things happened. We had a financial stabilization reserve that we depended upon, call it the rainy day fund. And we depended on that to kind of backstop us in years that there was some over expenditures. Well, through COVID and through a series of other things, including a funding freeze years ago from the provincial government, that financial stabilization reserve has been drained down. So we don't have access
Jeff
to that.
Verwadi was here talking about it. Yes,
Right. So we need to raise more revenue.
Gage Helbridge, the Prairie Director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, looks at this from a different perspective. He actually says you're breaking a 2022 election promise because you said the tax hike will be 3.5%. So to look at this from that perspective, what's your response to that?
In my campaign platform in 2022, I made two commitments. One, to do all I can to keep the property taxes at 3.5% increase per year. Second of all, to get a new funding formula from the province of Manitoba. We have not got the latter. And so we're at a place right now where we're going to control expenses, but we have to raise revenue. And we've heard from residents of Winnipeg of what they want their priorities to be. In fact, there were two significant polls that took place this fall, and residents of Winnipeg said overwhelmingly they want better roads and they want safer communities. And so the primary investments of this 5.9% property tax increase go to fixing roads and increasing community safety, public safety.
Do you regret when you were finance chair not really pushing for the tax increase to come sooner? Because this is not just laying with the recent years, right? We go back to Sam Cates, where I remember doing interviews with him years and years ago when everybody was saying we need to actually raise property taxes. We're not getting revenue from other places. I'm just wondering whether you have any regrets about not being stronger on looking for this earlier. It doesn't make you politically popular, but obviously when you look at the city's finances, this is not a new idea.
Yeah, no, I again, through the years when I was finance chair, we worked very hard. We were raising property taxes by 2.33% every year. So there was a property tax increase, and we were working very hard as well to control expenses. So as we look ahead, and I'm primarily looking ahead now at where we're going as a city, we have to have more revenue to deliver the services Winnipeggers need. And don't forget, over the last couple of years, what has happened, in the last 3 years, our city has grown by 65,000 people. And so as the population grows, the demand for city services, emergency services, fire, paramedic, police only increases. And so we don't have the corresponding revenue immediately that comes with that population growth. So we need to raise revenue to deliver services Winnipeggers depend upon.
I want to move to snow clearing.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that snow clearing will kick in on residential streets at 15 centimeters instead of at 10 centimeters. You've talked about how much money you're going to save with the decision, but we have Debbie Patterson here. There's a quick clip of her. She uses a wheelchair to get around, and here's what she said to CBC.
Every time I see it snowing, my heart sinks a little bit. When there's fresh snow, I can't go anywhere. Unless I have handy transit booked. And even then, they sometimes complain if the sidewalk isn't cleared from my door to the van.
I can't tell you how many people wrote into me about this. I just want to share a couple other quick things, Mr. Mayor. So we had another Winnipegger who uses a wheelchair say, how are you going to make sure that people like myself, she wrote, can access work buildings if you're plowing streets only after 15 centimeters of snowfall? She was actually on the phone with a councillor last week. She was stuck in her wheelchair behind her work building. There was too much snow. And Deborah Denise asking you to reconsider. She said, only plowing P3 streets after 15 centimeters, will you reconsider? She lives on a bay. She says there's seniors, there's young families, there's no sidewalk, there's kids, and she thinks it's going to be dangerous as those ridges increase. So I guess, will you reconsider? And then let's talk about why or why not.
Well, to answer your first question, we have just introduced a preliminary budget, and so we haven't made a final decision. There'll be our final budget vote will be at the end of January. We'll be having discussions on this. My office is hearing, other councillors are hearing from residents about this as well. Second of all, just to reiterate so everyone is crystal clear, this is a pilot project proposed. It's not a change in policy. It's a pilot project proposed for next winter. So this pilot project will not take effect this year. It would start in the fall or the winter of 2025. But like I said, our staff has said, and even contractors have said, there may not be much noticeable difference in moving to clearing at 15 centimeters instead of 10. And part of what we're trying to do is we're trying also to look at innovative ways and to run pilot projects at different times so that we can test whether or not some changes make a positive difference, no difference at all. If it's no difference at all in service level, but we can save millions of dollars, I think the public would expect us to at least try some of these things and look at them. But yes, we're hearing from a lot of people.
You know what happens though? People go, well, if you save millions of dollars, if you let the extra 5 centimeters fall, and yet you don't cut the business tax. Like, that's what sits in people's minds, right? They say, why wouldn't you make the decision to change the business tax to make more revenue there? Right? Just as a point of comparison. I know they're different things, but people are judging how you're making the decisions on their behalf.
Winnipeg
right?
is one of the only major cities in Canada that has a business tax. And so, it's a balancing act. We're trying to do all we can to help small business and attract small business, because small business, often it's said it's the backbone of our economy. Well, certainly there are small business owners right now who are just at that threshold that really can keep their store open, their shop open, keep employing people, because they can keep the business tax low, and they get, so on a certain threshold you get a rebate for that.
7:54. We've got 3 minutes or 3.5, maybe if I'm lucky, left with Mayor Scott Gillingham. I've got a few topics here. I'm going to return to the budget in a moment, Mr. Mayor, but can I ask you about a couple of things that have been developing otherwise? So one of them is the police chief. So we've heard from the police board in Marcus Chambers that they had a candidate. We hear by the end of the year, and then all of a sudden we heard, no, wait a moment, we're not going to hear. They're taking more time to ensure this election is going to happen. You have weighed in already. You sit on the police board. You suggested no decision is imminent. Was there a candidate that was selected?
No. So the police board is in a process. My comments were that the fact that the police board is in a process, and the process has to play out and be completed before any formal announcement of any name would be made. So it's there's been a lot of talk publicly, but let's keep in mind that, as a city, we have HR processes. We're following the HR process as a city of Winnipeg.
Can you say if you've picked someone, or can you not even respond?
I will say that there's a process that is being followed right now. It's very important that the board be thorough in completing that process before any formal announcement of anyone's made.
Okay. Just last quickly, will we still know by the end of the year, do you think?
When the process is complete, as soon as the process is complete, there'll be an announcement, but I don't have a date or timeline.
Okay. And in the news today, Plan 2050, we know what you think of this. We have heard some of the concerns, though, around it as well. So Plan 2050 is the framework for Winnipeg and neighboring municipalities. This goes for a vote today to coordinate planning and land use standards. You have said that the Manitoba Capital Region will lose business if we don't have this, the regional coordination on infrastructure. What would you say to the concerns, though, people that really are concerned this morning about it?
Well, I think, first of all, some of the concerns, frankly, are unfounded and just not factual. There's been a concern about the concept of 15-minute cities. I've actually had someone, tell me, you want to put gates within parts of the city of Winnipeg and keep people in their section of Winnipeg and not allow people to transition from one part of the city to the other. That's just... To say that is erroneous and not factual would be a kind way to put it.
But what is factual is some mayors in Reeves saying that they're worried about the regional coordination infrastructure. There's rules governing the size of lots in residential neighborhoods that they don't want to be messed with.
There was actually a lot of flexibility within the plan. The original draft plan that was put together was more stringent on those rules. The follow-up plan or the edited plan actually had gives municipalities a lot of autonomy to make those decisions. There's guidelines, but there's still a lot of autonomy as far as how large a lot could be and lot size. What I have been consistent in saying, and I maintain this, for us to function really well as a region, for us to compete as a region against other regions, think about the Edmonton region or Minneapolis region, we need as municipalities to be coordinated in our land use planning, and most importantly, in a shared economic development plan. So we can attract business to this region and create jobs and have strong economies so that we can pay for the services we just talked about moments ago: snow clearing, playgrounds, pools, police, fire, paramedics.
Last minute, listeners will be upset if I don't ask you about this, because a lot of them wrote in about the Millennium Library Community Connections being cut. Will you reopen something else downtown, or is there still a chance you'll leave that open? People are writing that that community service is vital, and we're at a time where we need to help people. Social problems growing downtown. We've talked about this a lot. So people are having trouble making sense of why you're cutting that out of the library.
Well, first of all, we had only committed the funding to the end of 2024. The primary services that community connection space delivers are really provincial services. We talked a moment ago about why the city of Winnipeg is in some of the budget challenges we're in.
But this can't be just jurisdictional. It's a city of Winnipeg problem if our downtown has people that aren't being served.
But we have done as a city, I would argue as a mayor, we've done more for social needs in our downtown. We have 24/7 safe spaces we invest in. We invest in mobile outreach. These really also are our primary library services, and so we have increased community hosts there as well to help people. we've talked to the province, and look, I think they're looking at other ways to meet the needs downtown. But
So are you depending on the province to fill the gap then? Is this a push to them to say, you fill this gap?
We've had discussions with the province about some of the services that we have been providing in that space are really provincial services. And we have to be aware of this. When governments get into mission creep, the costs go up and up and up. And so we have, I think, a good partner in the province right now to find ways to partner together to provide those services, for the province to provide those services at another location.
There's always more to talk about. We do have to leave it there. I knew we'd take it to the pin. Mayor Scott Gillingham, happy holidays. Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy Kwanzaa, happy Hanukkah as well. Thank you all.
That is the Mayor of the City of Winnipeg, Scott Gillingham, and World Report is coming up next. Stay with us. You're with CBC 89.3 FM. I'm Marcy Marcusa.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
Suki Waterhouse started out as a model and an actor, but she's always had a passion for songwriting ever since she was a kid. She'll tell you about turning that hobby into a career, her new album, and what it's like to open up for Taylor Swift on the Eras Tour. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
There are allegations that a potato cartel is behind the rising cost of your French fries and tater tots. One expert has solutions for this and other monopolies in the country that have many Canadians feeling frustrated. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Giselle Pellico's courthouse horror is over. Her now ex-husband has been convicted of aggravated rape. 50 other men have been found guilty. Supporters in Avignon, France, waved signs and thanked Pellico for her bravery, for refusing a closed trial, and for insisting that shame is not for victims of sexual assault. It's for the perpetrators. The CBC's Sarah Levitt has been following this trial. She joins me now from our studio in London. And Sarah, Giselle Pellico addressed reporters after the verdict. What did she say?
Marcia, with the same poise she's shown throughout this trial, Giselle first thanked her family, lawyers, and supporters, saying that the trial has been extremely difficult. She also said she was thinking of all the families affected by the case, and she spent a moment talking about all the unknown victims of sexual assault. She said, "I want you to know we share the same fight." As for why she waived her right to anonymity, here's what she said.
When I opened the doors to this trial, I wanted society to be able to take part in this debate. I have never regretted that decision. I have confidence in our ability to collectively grasp a future in which everyone, women and men alike, can live in harmony with mutual respect and understanding.
All these men have been charged with sexual assault, attempted rape, or aggravated rape. What happens now?
Well, for most of them, it's off to prison. Giselle's ex-husband, Dominique Pellico, was given a 20-year sentence. That's the maximum. The other men received a range between 3 and 15 years. At least 5 of the men are free. That's due to suspended sentences or time already being served. For the children of Giselle Pellico, those sentences are not good enough. They say they're disappointed. Now the men have 10 days to decide if they will appeal.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Sarah Levitt reporting from London. The U.S. government is inching closer towards a shutdown. A funding bill meant to avert it was rejected by Republicans in Congress. Both Donald Trump and Elon Musk told lawmakers not to support it. The CBC's Richard Madden is following this story for us. And Richard, take us through what happened.
Yeah, it's a stunning turn of events. Mere hours after House Speaker Mike Johnson appeared to have reached a bipartisan deal to keep the U.S. government open, incoming President Donald Trump blew it up, saying it's stuffed with too many giveaways to Democrats. He echoed earlier post by Elon Musk, the world's richest man who's been appointed by Trump to oversee government spending. Musk trashed the bill and threatened any Republican who supported it with their political demise. Now, the bill allows the government to pay its bills through until next March, but it also includes unrelated spending, about $100 billion for disaster aid, $10 billion for farmers, but it also gives pay raises to members of Congress. So after Musk put out the warning, Republicans quickly fell in line. This spending bill is dead, and the government is now on the brink of shutting down right before Christmas. Now, House Democrats say the chaos can all be blamed on Republicans and question who's calling the shots. Is it Trump or Musk? Here's Minority House Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
House Republicans will now own any harm that is visited upon the American people that results from a government shutdown or worse.
Not only does this put the Speaker and Republicans under pressure to start over, it also previews the challenges Republicans will have to manage when Trump takes office and the outsized power of Trump's inner circle who threaten their careers if they don't obey.
So what happens now?
Yeah, so House leadership needs to come up with a plan B. Maybe they have to start all over again with a smaller version that Democrats could support, but the pressure is clearly on Speaker Johnson because he needs to come up with a plan before the government's own deadline of midnight Friday.
All right, thank you, Richard.
You bet.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. In Yemen. Fire trucks are at a power plant in Sana'a. It was targeted by Israeli airstrikes overnight, along with other energy infrastructure. A Houthi news station says 9 people were killed, and Israel's defense minister is warning there will be more. Israel Cat says whoever strikes Israel will be hit sevenfold. The Houthis fired a missile at central Israel today. It was intercepted. French President Emmanuel Macron has arrived in Mayotte 5 days after Cyclone Chido hit the island. A helicopter takes Macron around the island to get an aerial view. Parts of the island are still inaccessible because of the damage from Chido. Local hospitals have confirmed 31 deaths, but officials say hundreds or thousands more could have died. The plane Macron arrived on was also carrying 4 tons of food and medical supplies, as well as more rescue personnel. We have an update to a story we brought you yesterday about 2 police officers on Vancouver Island who were charged with the sexual assault of a vulnerable woman they met while on duty. CBC News has now learned one of those officers has died by suicide. 43-year-old Matthew Ball was suspended by the Central Saanich Police Services. The RCMP has only said a body was found in a forested area 40 kilometers northwest of Victoria. The number of people experiencing homelessness in Saskatchewan's big cities is climbing. In Regina and Saskatoon, more than 2,300 people are looking for help. And as Chris Edwards tells us, shelters are struggling.
Last winter I lost too much friends, and that's why I'm doing it this year.
At a rally outside of Saskatoon City Hall, housing advocate David Finde braved the -20 cold to deliver an urgent message about the city's homelessness crisis.
I do not want to lose any more people.
Since 2020, the number of people in the city without stable housing has tripled to at least 1,500 people. Saskatoon Mayor Cynthia Block has only been in her role for a few weeks, but says her administration is taking things seriously.
It's all hands on deck for both the administration and for the elected officials. Council is very concerned that we failed to meet the challenge of our time, and that's not okay.
But housing advocate Melissa Natauhaus says change isn't happening fast enough.
Me as an advocate, I don't see much change happening. It's a lot of lip service, and it's not a lot of action. So they say they're going to do this and this and this, and you don't really see a whole lot.
And it's a similar trend in Regina. The number of people experiencing homelessness there has risen by almost 70% since 2021. For new Regina Mayor Chad Pashinsky, the problem comes down to a lack of support from the province.
We need sustainable funding to adequately support the services and the programs that effectively hit boots on the ground and can help people directly.
This all comes on the heels of the latest national housing numbers from the Canadian Real Estate Association. It's reporting that the price of homes in Saskatchewan have grown by nearly 9% since December 2022, whereas in Canada as a whole, prices have remained stable over the same period. Chris Edwards, CBC News, Regina.
It's been almost a week since Canada's GST holiday began, but one industry in particular is still wondering why it's not included. As Natalia Goodwin reports, Canada's craft distilleries are hoping to give their customers a tax break too.
Either they didn't think about it or they have a problem with spirits and they're actively looking to harm or exclude the sector.
Alex Hamer is the founder of Artisan Distilleries Canada. He can't comprehend why the industry would have been left out of the tax break.
What's the purpose? How was this thought about? How were these products determined?
At SFR Distillery in Ottawa, General Manager Adam Brierley is wondering the same thing and worried it will mean less sales.
We're pretty much the only excluded beverage across alcoholic and non-alcoholic options, which is quite frustrating.
He says the industry in Ontario has been hit with a double whammy in recent months, the tax break and being left off the shelf when Premier Doug Ford expanded where liquor could be sold. Ontario's Department of Finance told CBC that spirits will continue to be sold exclusively at the LCBO, a decision it says aligns with other Canadian jurisdictions and ensures socially responsible sales. But Brierley isn't buying it. He points to other countries where spirits are sold outside dedicated shops and says it seems that here they're dealing with a bad rep.
There are many viable options to sell spirits that our governments, federally and provincially, just don't seem to be interested in considering.
CBC reached out to the Federal Department of Finance for comment. They have yet to respond to our questions. Natalia Goodwin, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime. CBCnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, welcome to Thursday morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Wherever you're joining us, thanks for being here. Got a strange day on our hands. It feels calm out there, and then the wind whips up, and then you look at some of the warnings for snowfall in the province. We have a whole bunch of school cancellations. So weather is wreaking a little bit of havoc on us, and it's a little slippery out there. School cancellations in just a moment. I want to talk about a feature story we have on, though, this half hour. You might have heard part of it in the news. We're going to hear more about a young man who is losing his ability to move his muscles. There is a drug that could help prevent this from happening to him and to his body, but he says the province will not pay for it. CBC's Ian Fraze is in studio to tell us more about it. Stay here. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells, who has an update on our news stories otherwise. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the daughter of a senior who's been missing for more than a year hopes recommendations from the review into his disappearance prevent similar incidents. Earl Moberg was last seen in River East December 12, 2023, leaving his house. The 81-year-old suffered from dementia. His daughter, Britt, says a recommendation to make sure home care is more flexible is important. We're going to hear more about that. And after more than 7 months of living in a hotel room, Joyce Hilborn and 250 other tenants will soon be able to go back to Birchwood Terrace. They were forced out suddenly this year after deterioration was found in parts of the building structure. The only problem now is an exact date. They haven't been given one, so they're waiting on that. We'll hear this update coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Here are the list of school cancellations. So Garden Valley School Division, because of poor road conditions, all bus routes are canceled and all schools are closed. Mennonite Collegiate Institute School in Gretna is closed. The Christmas concert tonight is canceled. Reston School is closed, but I have an updated note on clarity here. There's no buses running, but schools are also all closed in Fort LaBosse School Division. So all schools in Fort LaBosse closed. Also, in addition, Southwest Horizon School Division, staff assigned to work from home, but school is off. Turtle Mountain is closed. All schools closed in Prairie Spirit. In Prairie Rose School Division, Region A schools are closed. In Rolling River, buses are canceled, but school is on. Finally, in Brandon School Division, no rural buses. And Alexander O'Kelly and Spring Valley schools are closed. So Hello, Winter. Abby is here with an update on our actual forecast.
Snowfall warning in effect for parts of southern Manitoba, covering the Red River Valley all the way down to Turtle Mountain regions. Now, this will impact Morden, Winkler, Turner, Morris, all the way around that area down to Killarney. The snow is expected. You should be seeing about 10 centimeters in some areas before the system ends this afternoon. Now, as you move north, the snowfall amount decreases, with Winnipeg expecting just a few centimeters more to add on the ground. But right now we are at -15. We're seeing light snow in the city, and that is blowing in open areas. That should taper off this morning. So take it easy out there, either on the highway heading out of the city or within the city limits in open areas. This will be impacting you. You just want to take care.
All right. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk.
Yeah, new issue here in the city to keep an eye out for. Northbound La Jamodière at Abinogi-Mikana. In the curb lane, there are a couple stopped vehicles just stopped. That's causing some backup. So that's going to be slow going northbound La Jamodière at Abinogi-Mikana. So keep left to get around that. Otherwise, it's just not great conditions out on the highways this morning. Poor visibility, slick. Hearing about the same thing about bike lanes as well here in the city. They're plowed, but they're also very slick as well. So just be careful wherever you go, and could be slow going. But I haven't heard of any major issues otherwise. Give me a call, though, if you do see something going on. 204-788-3093.
Well, up first this half hour, the very first thing that Jeremy Bray does each and every morning is to check and see whether or not he can still move his left thumb. The 29-year-old has a degenerative disease called spinal muscular atrophy. Now, that's gradually robbed him of the ability to move his muscles, except for that one thumb. There is a drug, as you may have heard in the news, there is a drug to help stop the progression of this disease or even reverse some of the effects. But the province of Manitoba will not pay for it. The CBC's Ian Fraze is here to tell us more about the story. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I mean, this story sounds incredible. And let's start with Jeremy and his, what's happening with his movement. What is his life like?
Despite everything, you just said there in the intro, he's still happy. He thinks he has a good life despite all these physical challenges. I met him a few days ago. He's a soft-spoken 29-year-old man. He's in a wheelchair. He's got a full-time job as a data consultant. And he's got lots of friends that he enjoys going to restaurants and bars with. But again, going back to that thumb, that is really the only muscle that he can really move. That's it. With that thumb, he touches a joystick that allows him to control that wheelchair. And he can also touch his phone, and that phone's connected to his computer. And thus, he can work as a data consultant. The thumb, again, is really that difference between having a fulfilling life with a job and some level of independence to go out into the world on his own, and not having that. And despite all these challenges, again, he really clings to that optimism.
I have a good life. There's lots in my life that gives me joy. I just try to live each day at a time and try to make it a good day.
And we're hearing him there as well. So he has a little bit of movement with his mouth still.
Yeah, and I noted at the start, him being soft-spoken, right? This is the voice that he can pull out.
Yes, yes. What exactly, just to elaborate here a little bit, Ian, what exactly is the condition he's dealing with?
Yeah, so it's type 2 version of spinal muscular atrophy. It's a debilitating condition that has gradually robbed him of the ability to move his muscles. Now, at first when he was born, there was no signs of anything amiss. He was hitting all the developmental milestones. He was trying to pull himself onto furniture to stand. And then suddenly he stopped doing that. He was regressing. Shortly after his first birthday, he was diagnosed. By the age of 4, he was in a wheelchair. And then by high school, he couldn't raise his arms to feed himself. Now at the age of 29, he cannot move his arms, his hands, his legs, his head. He can still speak, but his stamina is gradually lessening over time. And as a reminder, he's got that left thumb. It's a lot. In some ways, it's all he has left, and it's really his last link to independence. But time for him is running out.
Even in the last year, I've felt my thumb getting weaker. I've had less energy. it becomes more difficult to get through the day. And so I can't imagine I have more than a few months to a year left like this.
So what options does he have, if any?
So there are treatments. For him, it would be a drug called Risdiplam. This is hugely expensive. It would cost around $300,000 for the first year. Jeremy has asked Manitoba to cover it, but they refuse. Quebec, on the other hand, will make this available for any adult who wants it. Every other province, including Manitoba, will only pay if the patient is under 25. Remember, Jeremy here is 29. For those over 25, all these provinces will only do it on a case-by-case basis. The provinces that aren't paying for older adults, like Manitoba, are following guidance from Canada's Drug Agency, which has never researched how the drug will impact those over 25. But Jeremy says it's frustrating that other provinces are making exceptions for people over 25, but not his home.
It's very frustrating that the province I live isn't willing to take those steps that other provinces are and have been taken. It's very, very frustrating.
So let's look at Quebec, because you said that they do this, they fund this. So what kind of results are they seeing then for adult patients?
So I spoke to a doctor in Quebec City, Xavier Rodrigue, and he says it's going well. And he's also been part of a study that has done this research for people with type 2 like Jeremy. He says for around 90% of his patients, it works. Now, he disagrees with Manitoba. In a letter that Jeremy got from the province, it said that, we're sticking with the guidance. If it changes, we'll adjust. But, this doctor says that's never going to happen. He says it's unethical for anyone to do a study that would deny some people this treatment, give some people the treatment and some not, because if you don't give the treatment to some people, you're banishing them to a worse outcome, because the doctor says that we know this works in Canada and around the world.
What kind of an explanation did you get then from the province, from Manitoba?
Yeah, so I spoke to the health minister, Yuzoma Asaguera. I should note, they're not referencing the cost of this drug. Again, they're sticking with the fact that there is guidance, and the Canada Drug Agency has experts that have done research and looked into this. We should also note that of the evidence that is out there, we know that it works better for those under 18. In sort of that 18 to 25 demographic, there can be benefits, or, as the doctor said, around in 90% of cases, but, you may not see as much benefit.
So they're sticking with the age. That's what they're talking about, the research
Correct.
around the age. They haven't been bringing up the cost of it. Where does it leave the family, though, then?
Understandably devastated, frustrated, choose your word there. Jeremy acknowledges $300,000 for this drug is a lot. He gets it. But he also says that denying him treatment, that comes at a cost too.
Ultimately, I'm going to be a greater burden on the healthcare system. I won't be independent. I'll be living on assistance. I'll be in the hospital more as my respiratory system gets compromised, and then they'll have to deal with those additional costs.
So he's not giving up, and neither is his dad, Darren. He wants Manitoba to reconsider. He remains in awe of his son, who's lived as normal a life as possible.
I feel in awe of his son, yeah.
Yeah. Again, just in awe of that, but also knows that Jeremy hasn't forgotten what's at stake for him.
He's getting weaker, and it's all gonna come to an end without a treatment. So getting on treatment, experiencing some bit of gain in strength, as minimal as it might be, he loses that worry of regressing further, and that's everything, right? That's everything to him, and his parents. That's what we have to hope for.
Wow. Jeremy did meet with the Assistant Deputy Health Minister in May. That did not change the province's opinion. The Health Minister told me, just yesterday that they are willing to meet with Jeremy. And we'll see what comes of that.
Thank you for bringing this story in this morning, Ian. Really appreciate it.
Welcome.
That is Ian Fraze, the provincial affairs reporter here at CBC Manitoba. So he will have more on the story tonight at CBC News at 6. You can also read about it on our website right now at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
8:23 a.m. is the time right now. Light snow falling in Winnipeg. It's -15. We've been there all morning. There's that dusting. It looks almost like someone took powdered sugar and put it all over the street in downtown Winnipeg. You can see the tracks from the cars going back and forth on Portage Avenue. It's making things slick around town, though, and also out on the highways as well. So be careful out there. We are expecting about 2 centimeters in total, and then it's going to calm for the day. But with our wind chills, it's going to feel more like -24. Well, if you need something to look forward to in the new year, Winnipeg band the Dust Rhinos are playing their first show of the year, January 3rd, at Side Stage. And to entice you to consider going, here they are with their song To All the Friends I've Ever Had.
When I think on all I've done, everything I've seen, won't waste another minute wondering what might have been. We live today, it's now or never. Life is long, but time moves on, and we won't be here forever. If I ever get to thinking the hard times we've been through, here today, and I'm proud to say that I was there with you. To all the friends I've ever had and the friends I've yet to meet. So here's to you, and here's to me. Here's to all the days ahead, each and every one. We'll face whatever comes our way, till our days are done, our heads held high. We stand together through the good times and the bad, in blue sky or stormy weather. And if you ever think the good old days are done, get off your ass and raise your glass, the best is yet to come. All the friends I've ever had, the friends I've yet to meet. Here's to you and here's to me. To all the friends I've ever had, the friends I've yet to meet. Here's to you and here's to me. Look how far we've come, but there's still so far to go. Whatever fate may throw my way, there's one thing that I know, I don't go alone. We walk together, side by side we'll face each day, for we're so pathetic and keep living in the past. We're not there no more, oh I say all our yesterdays ain't got nothing on tomorrow. To all the friends I've ever had, the friends I've yet to meet. Here's to you, and here's to me. To all the friends I've ever had, the friends I've yet to meet. Well, here's to you, and here's to me. Yeah, here's to you, and here's to me.
Woo! I went to Newfoundland for the first time in my life this year, and that's what that reminds me of, that kind of vibe, right? If you're into it, that's the Dust Rhinos, and you can look forward to checking out their show in the new year. They are playing January 3rd at Side Stage. Now, we have a couple of minutes before our 8:30 news here, so I just want to talk about the new year, and specifically New Year's Eve, because I noticed in the newsroom that Faith Fundal, host of Up to Speed, was into work already, and so I'm already putting you to work. And Faith's in studio. Hi.
It's going to be so much fun, Marcy.
Because you're working New Year's Eve and you have a special plan for this. You're going to be all over national television.
Yes. So for 7.5 hours, Adrian Arsenault and Ian Hannamansing will be hosting a live New Year's Eve special. We're going to go all across the country as the clock strikes at midnight, which includes Winnipeg. I'll be in a neighborhood in Crescentwood where about three homes have flooded their what do you call it?
Piece of the river? Like they made rinks on the river?
They made rinks in front of their house.
Oh, awesome.
Where the grass is usually. And so they essentially are going to have a humongous party.
Oh, I love that. Is this, I think I know these homes. I think I've passed by. Is this, you said in Crescentwood, is this sort of their front yards are sort of joined?
Yes.
They flooded all the way across
Exactly.
the front yards to have this this area to play and do winter stuff.
So I know that in the past they've had very fancy people skate there, including people from the Winnipeg Jets.
Ooh.
But we will be there as part of this big New Year's Eve special. And it's going to be so much fun.
So I think this should be our opportunity to invite people. So if you don't know what you're doing on New Year's Eve, or better yet, if you're going to be in Winnipeg, maybe you're going to be around the Crescentwood neighborhood, or you can drive there. Maybe you're going to be coming by and doing outdoorsy things. Maybe you'll be part of the broadcast. Like just drop by.
So I don't know how to skate.
Oh.
And I may or may not be learning how to skate on national television.
Oh, what do you think? What do you think it's going to feel like to skate?
We'll see. I have stood on curling ice before.
Okay.
Not the same, apparently.
No.
So
it's not. Yeah.
I will make sure that I have a helmet, some knee pads, elbow pads, and hopefully I don't fall hard.
You won't. Someone will be there to catch you.
It'll be
It's
so
New
much
Year's
fun.
Eve.
It'll be so much fun.
I love that you're going to be repping Winnipeg.
So
in
New
this
Year's Eve.
cross-country New Year's Eve.
And I borrowed garbage mitts.
Okay.
To show the rest of the country how we keep warm here in Manitoba.
Garbage mitts originated here, made here, sewn here for years. As so much manufacturing has changed, but those are still made here. That's amazing.
So it's going to be fun. New Year's Eve on CBC News Network and CBC Television.
Oh, thanks a lot, Faith, for popping in.
Thank you.
So look forward to that. And if you can make a date on New Year's Eve, or if you don't have plans, maybe you want to consider, going by, and maybe you'll end up on national television as Adrian Arsenault and Ian Hannamansing, as you heard, go all across the country to ring in the new year on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We have had some challenges this morning out on the roadways, so hopefully you're doing okay out there on the commute. If you have anything late, we're late in the show and late in the morning rush, but if you do need to call us, please still reach out at 788-3093. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, we've got light and blowing snow. In Winnipeg, it is -15. That snow ending late this morning. For Winnipeg, 2 to 4 centimeters. And our high today is -14. The daughter of a senior who has been missing for over a year now hopes recommendations from the review into his disappearance prevent similar incidents. Earl Moberg was last seen leaving his house in River East December 12, 2023. The 81-year-old suffered from dementia. His disappearance is a critical incident, according to the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority. Moberg's daughter, Britt, says a recommendation by the WRHA to make sure home care is more flexible is important.
If my mom had the opportunity to say, this is when I'm working, I'd really like to have somebody to be there at the time when she's away. And, also when my dad was more likely to wander and when he was more likely to be, confused, that certainly, could have been life-saving for my dad.
Moberg says while her father is presumed dead, her family still hopes to find his remains and give him a proper burial. A man with a rare degenerative disease may have to leave Manitoba because the province won't cover the cost of his treatment. Jeremy Bray has spinal muscular atrophy. It has gradually robbed the 29-year-old of the ability to move his muscles. Treatment can stop the disease's progression, but the drug Bray needs, risdiplam, could cost as much as $300,000 in the first year of treatment. The province says it won't cover the drug because Bray is older than Health Canada's cutoff of 25. Now Bray and his family are considering moving to Saskatchewan, one of the provinces that has granted exceptions for risdiplam's use.
The province I live isn't willing to take those steps that other provinces are and have been taken. It's very, very frustrating.
Manitoba's Health Minister Uzoma Eseguera says they're willing to meet with Bray, but says it is up to Canada's drug agency to change the recommendation. After more than 7 months of living in a hotel room, Joyce Hilborn will soon be able to go home. She and 250 tenants were forced, without notice, from Birchwood Terrace earlier this year. Severe deterioration was found in parts of the building's structure. Hilborn's happy to learn she gets to go home soon, but she's taking this news with a grain of salt.
We don't even have a move-in date. They said that they would be notifying every person individually. So we don't know when we're going to get that call.
The city says the owners of Birchwood Terrace have met all the safety conditions and a full occupancy permit was issued this week. Manitoba chiefs say they are not ruling out legal action against Ottawa over delays on payments for First Nation children, health and educational needs. The chiefs met with officials from Indigenous Services Canada in Winnipeg yesterday. They wanted answers on when payments for applications under the Jordan's Principle program would be made. The Manitoba backlog has grown to 6,000 cases. Nisitchewasik Cree Nation Chief Angela Levasseur says the bureaucrats had no answers.
It was offensive. I was left with the feeling that they could not have cared less if they tried. And I think that even the minister, Patty Hajdu, should be ashamed for sending such people to meet with the heads of First Nations governments.
The Canadian Human Rights Tribunal ruled last month Canada must immediately address the logjam with Jordan's Principle cases. A Winnipeg police officer charged with impaired driving 3 years ago has been acquitted. Robin Kipling was charged in 2021 after crashing his motorcycle on a road outside of Winnipeg. He failed a roadside breath test, then was taken to hospital to give a blood sample, but there's no record of when the blood sample was taken. An RCMP officer picked it up 5 days later. The provincial court judge said the gaps led to him acquitting the officer. Mark Wasiliu is Kipling's lawyer.
Anytime this happens to somebody, it's quite traumatic, and it was a long process. And so he's relieved that it's over.
Wasiliu questions why the charges made it to court given the problems with the evidence. And a contentious planning framework for Winnipeg and its neighbouring municipalities goes for a vote today. Plan 2050 would coordinate planning and land use standards for the city and 17 of its neighbours. Several mayors in Reeves strongly oppose the plan. Carla Devlin, the mayor of East St. Paul, expects the plan will be defeated at a meeting of the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region. She says she supported regional coordination of infrastructure, but not the rules governing the size of lots in residential neighbourhoods.
The density targets got into the weeds of municipalities and raised some eyebrows. I think that we have to have a gentle approach to development in municipalities and ensure that autonomy is still at the level of the council.
Now, the NDP government has introduced legislation to allow municipalities to opt out. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Thanks to Heather Wells and Megan Ketchison and Alana Cole in our news center. Thanks to our live team, Abby Adiemi, Kevin Ipatebo, Corey Funk, and thanks to the associate producers who worked on the specific items on today's show. They are Ian Fraze, Angelina Pelletier, Kalkadan Mulugeta, and Emma Fazakosh, woohoo, who was up early with us and experiencing the morning show live. Corey Funk.
Yeah, northbound Lajimodiere at Abenoji Mikana. There's a vehicle stopped in the curb lane, so keep left to get around that. Craig called, he said super backed up. Looks like it's a snowplow or something like that stopped.
Alrighty, and Abby.
I'll just summarize it. Snow drifts and wind chill. That's what's on the menu for today.
All right. Well, can we order something else?
Slurpee?
Slurpee? But is there, we could, yeah, that would work. Might taste kind of gross if you pulled it off the roadways, but thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
All right, taking a swirl of my coffee. It got cold. The show was so busy, so I'll have it now while I'm listening to The Current. That's up next on CBC. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app, on YouTube. And don't forget to check out our podcast if you're so inclined. It's called This Is Manitoba. We'll talk to you tomorrow.